Good evening and welcome to the Monday, December 13th, 2021 Litchfield Board of Selectmen meeting. The board has just come out of a paperwork review. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item this evening is a joint discussion with the Litchfield School District about property acquisition. Mr. Brown.
Okay. Yeah, so just for those folks that are just joining us or will be joining us later when they watch the YouTube video, we had originally posted this meeting to be called to order at 6 o'clock. We posted it that we would do business as non-public. After review, we felt that the non-public was not justified, so we're starting our meeting a little sooner than our normal business, which would be 6:30. So yes, we have Dr. Jetty here, his support staff, some of the school board members that have asked to spend some time to talk to the Board of Selectmen about their efforts and trying to decide what they're going to do with GMS school and kind of give you some background on what work's been done. And then hopefully concluding the discussion with potential future locations of the school if they decide not to build on the existing site. So, and I think you have some other items too, solar energy we're talking about.
Yep.
So with that, I'd let Dr. Jetty take over.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. So joining me tonight, we've got our business administrator, Corey Isbicki. Corey's a key member of the team in our facilities planning group. And then we also have the chair of our school board, Christina Harrison, and the vice chair of the school board, Brian Burke. Both Tina and Brian serve on the facilities committee, along with the select board representative, Mr. Weber. So the group's been meeting for well over a year to try to figure out what it is that we need to do relative to our elementary school. There's also been considerable discussion about our middle school because the middle school is coming upon 40 years of age, and there's some infrastructure needs there that we've been trying to address. But tonight's conversation is really about the elementary school because that's the most pressing need. Prior to the meeting, I handed out the handout that we used in our community dialogue session last Tuesday. This is called Reimagining the Griffin Memorial School. So we've had 2 sessions with the public invited. And we had a pretty decent turnout at the last session because we did send the postcards out to everybody in town, inviting them into the dialogue and letting them know that we were there to listen and to seek feedback and so forth. On the back of it are the guiding principles that we've identified. So we're looking for a reimagined GMS that will foster forward thinking and adaptable indoor and outdoor learning space. Through a lot of the work that we've done, the idea of tying the agricultural roots of our town into the work that we do in the school has really risen to the list. And so that's why you see that listed under number 1. We want it to be a hub for community activity and resiliency. We really want a school that's going to last us for the next 50 plus years. And we really want to work with the town to design a building that will capture what everybody sees as the needs for the town going forward. So think forward to 2050, 2070. What is it we would want to do in designing the school now to make sure that it captures all of that and pulls it together? We want to honor and embody the agricultural, historical, and natural context of Litchfield. We all know what a gem of a community this is, and we want to make sure that what we design and build captures that and carries it forward. We want it to be a high-performing school that effectively utilizes resources. And so we are engaging a lot of people with forward thinking about energy use and the way to make the school as efficient as possible. And the last principle, which is a net zero energy using passive house principles, is sort of the design concept that we have, that we want this to be an energy independent school so that it will save tax dollars down the road in terms of heating and cooling costs for the building as we design them. So all of these are sort of the guiding principles that we have going into the project. So the work that we've been doing has really focused on, in the center of the handout, the 5 options that have been identified. And the other night, in sharing with the community, those 5 options were all discussed. You can see the pros and cons that had been identified, but we also solicited feedback from the community about other pros and cons that we may have missed. So option number 1 is to do nothing with GMS. In other words, sort of maintain the current situation with Griffin Memorial School as is. And we listed out what those pros and cons are. And you can see they are lumped into categories such as safety, constructability, and the investment. There's also a historical context aspect to it. Then we have educational needs and community feedback on these. And you can see the do nothing option was something that had been discussed, and we've solicited feedback on, and the pros and cons are listed there. The second option is a renovation and addition option. And basically that is where we would look at parts of the current building that are beyond useful life, and whether we could tear them down and then build new on site, and then renovate the sections of the building that would be able to be renovated, and what that would end up looking like. Again, you have pros and cons that go with that option. Pros and cons for option number 3, which is a new building on the existing lower site. So what we mean is when you look at Griffin now, in the back portion of the lot, could we build a school there, and what would that look like? It would be a new school. You would then have to figure out what to do with the current school, but you would build back further on that site. Option number 4 is the one that most people are familiar with, which is to build a new elementary school on the upper plateau by the middle school. So remember, that's one piece of property owned by the school district. And there had been efforts back in the early 2000s to build a new elementary school up there. And so we took a deeper look at what that would entail today. And then option number 5 is building a new building somewhere else in Litchfield. Examining the current situation and then deciding, is there a better location and a better piece of property for the school? After weighing all of these out, and if you look at the pros and cons list, and then listen to the people who attended the other night, the steering toward the school board was to consider building somewhere else. The doing nothing option, the public has been adamant that that's not an option. Their feeling is that the building is beyond useful life, and that we need to have a school that will meet our needs for the next 50 years. And that involves taking some serious action. The idea of renovating and adding on or building on the lower site, what we've learned is that the moisture issues that we have there, and then the cost to mitigate those, because that soil is very wet down there. The ongoing wetness issues are just going to remain. And so as much as you can do modern construction that will take care of some of that, you're still going to have issues with the location close to 3A, the traffic concerns that we have with cars and parent drop-off and so forth. So the idea of renovating and adding on the existing site or building deeper back on the lot were not highly favorable options. The other piece that we've learned is the deeper we've looked at the LMS site, there are major hurdles to the plan that had been brought forward. And I think there's a reason why the town voted against it several times. The hurdles are actually, it's a wetter piece of property, believe it or not, than the lower property. So there are, the water table on the upper site is actually higher than it is on the lower site. So you still have moisture issues to deal with up there. The other thing is that the idea of bringing a road up there so that you have a secondary egress, because McElwain just is not adequate. It's really not adequate for serving the middle school. And it certainly doesn't provide a secondary egress in the event of a fire emergency. And then we would have issues with building a road up to there from the lower site. The estimates we had were that you could be looking north of $3 million to even put a road in. So, $3 million worth of pavement to drive on doesn't go a long way toward addressing educational needs of the school. So the challenge that we had is, how do we spend that amount of money on a roadway versus getting after the educational needs? So at this point, the feedback we have received is that finding another location somewhere else in Litchfield seems to be what people are steering us toward. And so part of what we're here to ask tonight is for ideas from the select board on whether a piece of property somewhere else in town would be consistent with your master plan. So it's the town's master plan on what you see. Are there ideas that would be helpful to us in terms of trying to identify location for a school that would really design what Litchfield would look like for that next 50-year time period? So we're kind of here to ask that as an open-ended question and receive feedback from the select board. We've also noticed that the town owns, so if you take a state standard of, they want a school to be sited on 10 acres minimum. And if you take that concept and say, what does the town have that in their possession already that exceeds the 10-acre minimum? There's a good chunk of the town that is already in town ownership that may be something that we can engage in a dialogue about. And one other point that I would make to Troy's point is, so going back to the energy pieces that are in here, when we thought that we could locate a school on the same site as the middle school, we also envisioned it would allow us to take a real energy comprehensive look between the two buildings. But what we're learning now is that if we're going to be off-site somewhere, we're going to lose that ability to lump in the two buildings, right? So if you're trying to design a microgrid or some sort of a solar array that would feed both locations, they have to be sited on the same property. But we do think there could be possibilities where the town, if you have interest in doing something like that, it's something that we could engage with other town-based properties to say, how can we help cut our energy costs on the town side of the tax roster by smartly siting and planning a school site that allows us to kind of collaborate around those energy savings together. So that's what Troy was referencing, that, I don't know how deep into the look of solar panels you might be, but certainly it's more comprehensive if we're looking at it as both a town and a school partner going into this.
Okay, thank you. So since you're our rep on the planning board, fitting into the character of the town, the needs, the master plan.
There's really not a lot saying about the school systems in general, but they were trying to have everything accessible by walking or a path, bikes or something like that. I'm not sure where the state forest land is. You can show us on the map. Well, I don't know what exactly. Is it on?
Where all the trees were cut.
But is it off of?
Right there.
Is it off of
field?
3A? Is it off of 3A?
No, it's right here in the corner where they.
Oh, over here. You're thinking, okay, so it is near Albuquerque, right? So the kids could walk. That's really the master plan. It's, accessibility that way. So it doesn't really say a lot about school systems.
Any other comments?
Well, I'll say I'm dead against Derek one or some. Those are our rec facilities, and I don't see giving them up.
Well, we've put too much time into those
Yeah,
fields.
I think that it's a valuable asset to the community. I don't know enough about the state forest, but I think the state owns it. They do. So
Yeah, we
we
do.
have to go
Can
through
I
the state.
just ask, so we didn't mention any properties. We're just asking for feedback.
They were
So
mentioned in an email last week,
by us,
the one that we got from Troy, asking for the meeting. So, okay.
So, but I mean, looking at sites, I think we're open to other town sites, town property.
I don't know
Not many
what's
town
available.
properties that we own right now that are allowing construction on it. They normally have
Right.
easements on them for conservation, Most of that's wetlands, okay?
And I'd have to look at the land use of whatever land you're looking at, make sure. Yeah.
As for the existing proposal up on the middle school, I understand the groundwater is high. The groundwater is high on the lower, always has been. There's been lack of maintenance of the drainage for years there. I know that. But that's common, okay? As for the site that they proposed a few years ago, put an elementary school up there. And today it's wet. Back then it wasn't as wet. I don't know what's going on with that. Schools can be elevated too to get it out of that zone. And you put drainage. Under drains are a lot today. As for the subsurface requirements to put a leach field in, it still can be done no matter what it is. You have raised the leach fields with pumps. As for the second means of egress to come out of that site, it could come down through the back. It doesn't have to be a road per se. It can be an emergency access up to it, where your construction cost is a lot less. Okay. As for the turning on the Pinecrest Road to get into the little road there, we could probably increase the turning lane a little bit up there because the buses are more than two cars wide. Okay, that's the other side of that.
Is there enough room?
There could be enough room in there. It's not a very wide road. It's a 50-footer, but when they did that subdivision and the land across the street's not being developed, we can talk about that.
I spoke with Rick Chabonneau about the road, and he seemed to think $3 million was excessive. And he's an expert in that area. I would take his word pretty much. But he also suggested that the possibility of going to the street beyond McElwain, which is Underwood, and possibly purchasing a property at the end of that cul-de-sac, because you can look through the woods and see the school lights.
You
plain as
can.
day. It's very close.
You go underneath the power
I
lines
don't
and
know
get right
if
over
it's
it.
wet or not, but I don't think it is.
At the end, it
But
is.
it might be a lot less cost.
It is wet at the end, but wetlands. We can
Yeah.
always abate it by something
Yeah.
else.
But he also said that he'd be more than willing to meet with you folks and go over things with you and talk to you and give you ideas.
One of
So I
the,
guess- What's that, Rich?
one of the first positions I held in elected positions in Litchfield was on the budget committee. And I never will forget, we were talking about Griffin. This was in the early 80s. And there's a fellow named Jimmy Calawa who was on the budget committee with me. And we were talking about the drainage at Griffin. And he said he never would forget back in the, I believe it was in the 50s, installed a new septic tank at Griffin. So they had the hole dug and everything for this septic tank, but they couldn't get the damn thing to sink because there was so much water in it.
Yeah.
So in order to get the septic tank installed, they had to poke holes in the concrete so that they could get it to sink. I never will forget that, but that was in the early 50s. So the drainage situation at Griffin, although I've heard all through the years, through the decades, that all we have to do to take care of the moisture situation at Griffin is put in a few more ditches and some drainage. But I question that because I remember when the Babe Ruth field was first installed, it was a big controversy. And I think I've told you this, Robert, when they first put it in, there was a controversy because they couldn't use it because it was too wet. And I remember mowing the grass there in August without any rain, and the tires would get wet. Now, through the years, that piece of property has gotten less wet. But during the 90s, the school district was sued because of issues with mold at Griffin. And that's why during that period, we had to install a lot of portable dehumidifiers because of that. But that was as a result of a lawsuit, which we lost. But so the situation with Griffin is something that I feel needs to be addressed. I think in in order for an effort to be successful, that it has to be initiated by the board and that the board has to take the leadership on this. Back in the run up to Campbell, we had a building committee that at times had like 50 people on it. And they met weekly for almost a year. Of course, with Campbell, we had curriculum issues, we had building issues and so forth. And we solved the siting issue through sleight of hand. But it's important for the public to have the feeling that they're the ones, that this is their school. It's not a proposal that it has to come from the grassroots. And so as far as citing issues, I also with Robert, I would hate to see Dara Pond used for a school, because you're talking about 10 contiguous acres, and that's pretty significant. I would have to see a site plan on the middle school to see if it's feasible. My initial reaction, because a lot of that field that looks like it's open is actually a septic system. So that can't be used. So it has to be, and I think there's building issues for under the power lines. You can't just willy-nilly build under the power lines.
Cross under it though.
Well, yeah, you can cross under it, but again, I don't know how much land the school owns beyond that. Not too much, because we sold that to the Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy owns Grassy Pond.
That's right.
So that it's close to where the power lines are. So I don't know how much, but again, you'd have to see a site plan. But
So I guess what we'd really need to see is a list of potential properties that would fit it, that are undeveloped. Then what I would say is you'd want to speak to either probably conservation, because most of it's going to be the conservation gets impact, to see what they feel about it. I mean, I don't think anybody here is against using a piece of property the town owns that's undeveloped, as long as.
Just for the information, the Underwood piece, the abutting, the property back there on the end of it belongs to the school. Okay. All there.
how many acres are there?
Oh, there's quite a bit back there.
I can't see it.
So that's a great idea. I mean, we'll take that back and take a look at
Yep.
that question, because that's definitely that's worth exploring on our end. Just to respond to a couple of thoughts. So the way it's been described to us is that if we think about the lower site, the current site, so Rich is exactly right, by the way, that the when we were putting an oil tank in back in the 90s, I think it was, we had to put a concrete cover on top of it to keep it underground because it was floating up on us, right? And so, the amount of water that's there is really pretty significant. They've estimated that it's about 600 gallons a minute. It's actually an underground river that's moving through that site. So what's happened is, if you look at the energy costs of Griffin, they're about 1/3 more than an average elementary school in New Hampshire. So why is that? Because you're not comparing, when you say average, you're comparing to a lot of other old school buildings, right? And the feeling is that as the water moves underneath, it's actually absorbing the heat out of the slab. So the heat from the building goes into the slab. It's then absorbed into the water, and it's washed away from the school. Hence the increased energy costs. So we've already been paying for increased energy costs because of the water situation that we have on that site. That's why the floors are wet, because it's like when I take this out of the refrigerator. I got my cold soda can. It starts getting the condensation on it. So as that slab gets cooled by the water moving underneath, it's causing moisture in the air to condense. We can run dehumidifiers in that building, and we are at higher energy costs, I should say. We can run them all day long, and all they're going to do is take some of the moisture out, but there's still going to be moisture that gets on the floors and makes them slick and slippery because it's a bad site. You've got this underground river. If you go back up to the LMS site, what you have going on up there is actually a perched pond. So when you dig down in, there's a clay layer very close to the sand. So it's not a lot of sand, and then you hit a layer of clay. That clay is impermeable, and it creates a perched underground pond. And that's going to be the challenge that we have for building up there. And in terms of the septic situation that's there are new regulations that were not necessarily in play in the past. So when you do the total nitrate load between the existing septic field and then putting a second septic field in, you then end up with too much of a nitrate demand. And through DES, you'll have to permit for a nitrate easement is what we've been told relative to that. So the lot is too narrow to put two septic fields that close. We're not talking a household septic field. You're talking about two septic fields for 500 plus people. And so now you have a nitrate load demand that you have to play with on it. And another reason it makes that prohibitive for us, or maybe not prohibitive, but one more barrier to jump over relative to siting two massive septic fields next to each other. So all of these are just factors for us to consider. And the other piece is, so the board quickly went to no on some sites, but I guess, I would encourage, what we've encouraged people to do with this is to keep an open mind, because we went into this basically saying, we need to figure out how to build on the LMS site. And what we found is we don't think we can do it. So now what we're asking people to do is be open-minded to, so what are the possibilities? If you are saying that there's a piece of town-owned property with some value to it, is there a way as part of this project that we can substitute that value in a different manner? It's just a question. But if we're at a hard no, you can't do that. Versus, so what is it we value, and how can we do that in a different way? I think that changes the paradigm and changes the question a little bit, so that again, in 2050 or 2070, when people look back, they're saying, well, the forefathers who figured this out were pretty smart in the way they looked at the overall ask and the overall needs of the town. And so that's the request that I would just have. And I think I speak for Corey, Brian, and Tina when I say, we want to do the best we can. And we really want to be a collaborative partner in trying to figure that out. And are there other big picture items that we can factor in? But some great ideas tonight. I mean, this definitely gives us stuff to take back.
The other side of this is construction methods. Construction methods back in the 50s were a lot different than they are today. There's no vapor barrier or insulation underneath those slabs. The vapor barrier would have solved the water issue, and the insulation as well, which they do require it today. Okay, so these are the things we find we get with the certain soil conditions. That's what you got to do. So when you think about the other side, if you got a lot of water, there's ways of preventing that by construction methods. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking about too. You may have water, but you also have ways of preventing it in the long run as well. Okay, I know back in the 50s when they built the GMS extension off the back, there's nothing underneath. It's just concrete on ground. And you get into the newer sections, it's still concrete on ground. Okay, but now today's codes are requiring vapor barriers and insulation because of the energy codes. As for the nitrate things, was a licensed designer for years. Okay, yeah, the DES says so much, but there's ways of solving that as well. Okay, so I'm just bringing up there's two sides to everything, and I understand that. I'm willing to look at both sides, okay, but I want to look at the existing one as well. Okay, and how the construction method and the feasibility of getting to it two ways, okay, and the whole 9 yards. I'm looking at that too as well. As for what's going to happen to the Griffin School, my mother said to me tonight before I came here, she went to that school. She's 91. I went to that school, okay. My own kids went there, and the grandkids all went there. So, guys, They don't want to see it go. That's the bottom line. The older the generation.
Just a reaction to that too, Kevin, is that the entire town infrastructure has moved up the hill.
Yeah, we know that.
If you look at it, that the fire department is no longer down along 3A; it's more centered as town. There are additional expenses to busing when we're driving everybody all the way to the edge, if you would, right? So again, just thinking long term, if you think about what, and the master plan, Tim, may be silent on the school aspect of it, but let's face it, the bike path is along Albuquerque. The center of town is Albuquerque at this point. When the high school was built, Albuquerque wasn't even a throughway yet. It was still closed off somewhere just a little south of here, right? And so that got opened up as sort of the master concept came along. So I just think we want to continue to think that way. Our goal is to figure out, we're calling this reimagining GMS because we want to figure out, so what is the future? Nobody's talking about doing anything with the old school. We're totally open to conceptual ideas there, but is that the right location for a school when everything else is located more toward the center of town? That's the question. And I just think, again, encouraging people to think about that because this is a strategic, important decision for us to make.
And I just wanted to follow up on Dr. Jetty's comments earlier about, he reached out to me a couple weeks ago and we sat down, we pulled out the tax map and we got the highlighters out. We were looking at town-owned facilities, conservation land, some private property, just really doing some brainstorming where we thought, a school could be sited, keeping in mind, trying to keep that connection to the Albuquerque sidewalk. So I think that in my mind, as an outsider, I look at the assets in this community, I see the comments from residents and everything's always connected to the Albuquerque sidewalk. So I think that's where some of the, the reference to, well, do you look at Roy Memorial Park? You got an old town hall there that people are talking about. Do we tear it down? Do we build a community center? Do you look at that facility? Do you look at Sawmill Park? Can you preserve the playing fields there, but then utilize the upper part of it, and you can have two facilities operating on the one piece of land? Is it not even possible? I mean, but you should have that discussion, and probably with the rec commission, conservation, like you mentioned. But the taxpayers, when you come down to wherever this location is going to be one day, the taxpayers are going to ask you, did you look here? Did you look there? Why don't we do this? You need to look at everything. And that's part of the exercise I think the school's doing right now. And I'd hate to see the door completely closed from at least allowing those kind of discussions to occur. I think Dr. Jetty and his staff, if they wanted to try to meet with the rec commission, have a conversation, they should be able to do that. And we shouldn't just close the door, but allow that conversation to happen. There's a lot to it. It's not easy. But I know as you get closer and closer to determining where your facility is going to be sited, when you ask the question to the citizens on, will you pass the bond, they're going to have a lot of questions. And we just went through that with the fire department over the old fire station. It seemed like the conversation was more on what are you going to do with the old fire station than whether we needed the new fire station, how much it really costs. There's a lot of discussion on that, and there's still discussion today. So there's going to be a lot of discussion on what are you doing with the old GMS? And, did we look at why are we purchasing this land or why are we doing this? And so I think it's important. I think it's great that you've done the community engagement, that you continue to meet with public boards and get your message out.
Citing is a major thing. And you have neighborhood issues, you have transportation issues, and so forth. There's a reason why Griffin Memorial School is called Griffin, and there's a reason why Campbell is called Campbell. It's because we got those pieces of property but in the case of Griffin, I think it was donated. In the case of Campbell, we got a really nice price for it. So in return for that, we called it Campbell High School. That was somewhat controversial, but it was fine. But I think that one option, which we've touched upon, but we look for some privately owned property that we could get for, a reasonable price in return for naming rights of some sort, that sort of thing. Because that the historical significance of Griffin and Campbell are in both those cases, they were not town-owned property. So that would be my feedback, to take a look at private property, because there doesn't seem to be any. I agree with you that Albuquerque is the focal point of. I can't imagine this town approving a new school that isn't close to Albuquerque, especially for elementary age kids, But siting is a big deal.
One of the benefits, and I know it costs money unless you can get someone that can, work with the town to adjust the price, but acquiring a large tract of land to site a new school can also be a benefit to the community if it's in the right location, but prevent a lot of residential development, take some of the threat off that area. So
Takes it out
so
of
the
development.
taxpayers are in some way doing some growth management if you're taking that parcel out of the realm of being developed by 40, 50 homes.
That was a major deal for Campbell, is that by citing Campbell there, it took it out of development, because that was prime for development. If you think about that, we paid about $250,000 for that property. So I submit to you that naming it Campbell gets nowhere.
I think it's a good point that, elementary schools make good neighbors also, right? So as people head off to work, we're putting students there. And again, if you have a 10-acre plus site, that you can have buffers, sound buffers, et cetera, so that playgrounds and so forth. It's actually, to Rich's point and to your point, it is a good planning tool toward not having houses go in there or what have you. So.
And it raises property values in the vicinity.
It does.
And it would encourage new families to come into town. And your point about putting in the tank, I think I remember when that happened, because we had somebody to come out to try to pump the water out, and that was running 24/7 for like 2 weeks. I don't think they ever got it dry.
They didn't.
Dave Ross tells the story all the time.
That's part of the data on the 600 gallons a minute going under the school, so
Yeah.
it's like, it's a phenomenal
I
amount.
remember that pump running, because obviously I'm living next door, but they never did get it dry.
Then, Mr. Chair, I'd like to, if this is going to be what I'm going to see happen, and what I feel is going to happen, is going to be a lot of people going to say, what's going to happen to Griffin? So what's the plan there? What's going to happen? Is the rec department going to look at it? I'm going to get rid of the portables, of course, and all that stuff's going to go. But what is going to happen to that in those buildings? The way, and that's something the taxpayers are going to think about seriously. Okay, more than getting a new school is one thing, but what are we going to do with what we got? And how much does it cost to fix what we got to make it? Let's say the grades 1 through 5 or 4 there. Okay, cut down the occupancy load a little bit. And something like that, to look at the other elementary schools to be a little less. Okay, those are the things I'm thinking about, okay? Can we fix what we got there? I think you can fix it. In construction all my life, I've seen this happen all the time. With groundwater, what to do, cutting a slab out, putting a basement down, and repouring and putting the floor down. It does work.
How can you retrofit a vapor barrier?
Yes, you can.
You can?
Yeah, you can.
So the architect that we've engaged with has looked at that, and
Yeah.
it's a challenge to
Oh,
lift the
no
slab
doubt
and to get
about
a
it.
vapor barrier under. But remember that doesn't stop the water from flowing. So
Well,
the vapor barrier is helpful if you're concerned about water migrating up through the slab.
That's
It
what
doesn't
we-
help with the wicking.
Wicking.
Now you're talking an insulation layer down
Right,
underneath.
and that helps a lot too with the sucking the heat up.
And so, what he has said is that the state has a metric in terms of, is it 60%? If the cost of
Retrofitting
renovation
and renovation.
exceeds 60% of the cost of new, the state is going to
That's a
say
separate
do
issue. I
new.
agree. with
And
that.
so that's another factor. And
That's
he's
another
already
factor.
done the math on this, and he said to properly add and renovate will well exceed the 60%.
Because once,
So he's saying that new construction is the better option because of that 60% factor.
once you start to renovate all the pieces of Griffin Memorial that are grandfathered in to old code, now you got to lift everything up to current code, and that'd be a major expense. You're looking at sprinkler systems that aren't in there because they're grandfathered. There's going to be some major things that would have to be done to that building in order to renovate.
And the other issue is, where do you educate the children why that's being done?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, you don't have a place to do it. I agree with that.
And I know people have a strong emotional connection. I get it, to the 30s building, but let's face it, it's a storage closet right now. We can't put people in it. We're not allowed to occupy or teach in there. It doesn't meet any ADA compliance issues. It was designed in a different era with a different purpose in mind. So, bringing that up to not just code, but meeting all the regulations, that's going to well exceed 60%. So,
Yeah.
I think our challenge is, what is it that we do to memorialize that for the future, knowing that you're going to have to invest in it,
The SAU can move in there.
well, even still, for life safety, if we were to occupy those as offices, it has to be brought up to ADA compliance. I mean, the first thing you have is the steps going up or the
And an
ramp,
elevator on the
the
side.
ramp going down. So then you're talking an elevator.
I know.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, when you start to add all these pieces in. So,
Chairlift.
money will solve every problem. Money will solve every problem, but we feel that we want to be responsible in the way we make those money requests of the taxpayers. So,
Okay. That was just my thinking
Yeah.
about it. You're going to have the battle. It's going to be there. The battle's going to be there. Okay.
So our next community dialogue session is January 18th. That's a Tuesday night. It's being held in the Griffin Gym. Again, that was on the postcard that went out to every household in town, and I would encourage select board members to come and participate. I'm not sure what the agenda is going to be, because a lot of it is going to hinge on where we are now and the work that we get done in the next few weeks. But this is taking turns that we didn't imagine a month ago. And so here's one more effort to reach out and have the dialogue. I'd love if somebody came forward with ideas for us. I mean, that we're open to ideas. I'm going to follow up and request a meeting with Mr. Charbonneau. I mean, if he's willing to weigh in and to talk, I'm going to make sure that we make that contact. So I appreciate that, Bob. That was helpful.
I wonder what the value of the Griffin site is for private development.
I don't know if you can do that. Where it was donated, you'd have to check the deed because it was donated to the
Yep.
town, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And then the town signed it over to the school. If I'm wrong, Gail Behringer will call me tomorrow and tell me. But, she's a Griffin, an heir to the Griffins. So I don't know if you can do that. You would have to check the wording of the.
So
original
for
deed,
disposal,
because it was donated for the purpose of a school.
have the same issue with the library.
Yes.
And that's how they did it back in the days,
They locked it in.
so that it didn't get for anything else.
See, I was thinking it'd make a real good brothel.
Right across from your place?
Convenient.
It's convenient, never mind. It's convenient.
I just did a quick look at our zoning ordinances. There, it mentions it wants the sidewalk accessibility, long-term planning. It mentioned impact fees a lot and just what areas you could put a school. There really wasn't anything in there, just so you know when you go back to your meeting.
That's great. That's helpful.
That's great. Until it comes to the planning board and we go,
There has been discussion about running a sidewalk down Pinecrest, Albuquerque as well. So there's something to think about with the middle school tying in.
Yeah, we didn't get that
I don't mean
grant,
to
right?
sway
Nah,
it,
we didn't
but,
get that grant yet this year.
more comment. I don't mean to sway it, but the one other thing it mentioned about the school system, I don't know if they did the survey in 98 or whatever, and I know times have changed, is even the master plan knew that you're pretty much at full capacity at 98%. Now, I don't know what population has done since then overall for school children in the town, but even the master plan acknowledged schools are going to have to be looked at in the future.
Could you say that again? I didn't catch.
When I looked at the master plan chapters really quickly, where you were
Yep.
talking, I'm sorry if the clicks were loud, but the last thing was the master plan acknowledged that back in 1998, you were at 98% capacity in some of these schools, that including
Of
Griffin,
Griffin?
all of them, even
All of
LMS and Griffin. So they knew this was coming. I don't know what the school age children number has done in the town since then, but they did acknowledge it, that it's going to have to be looked at in the future.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we did.
I thought so.
Seems like every school year we have, I like to call it Griffin Tetris. You got to figure out where to put all the different, how many classes you have in each grade and where they're all going to go.
Yeah.
So
So at that point in time, you were about 98%. So I don't know if it's gone down to 90 or over. I don't know what it's done.
No, Campbell's set at 600. So we're a long ways from that.
Yeah. But other than that, there really wasn't anything, even in the zoning ordinances.
Thank you.
Nothing in there.
Anything else?
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, you're most welcome. Thanks for coming in.
And any ideas that come in after tonight, you have a brainstorm, email me,
Sure, we'll
call,
do.
whatever. Happy to listen because we're
We're
trying to figure this out.
You don't want Kevin to brainstorm.
Thank you.
Always
Thanks. Have a great evening.
the youngsters.
I say that with affection.
I know you do.
So next we have the review and approval of consent items. We have an account payroll manifest of December 7th, 2021 in the sum of $87,030.27 and December 14th, 2021 in the sum of $50,998.63. We have a payroll manifest of December 9th, 2021 in the sum of $56,789.56 and December 16th, 2021 in the sum of $62,747.39. We have the preliminary DRA assessment ratio of 85.8%. We have 5 veteran credits in the sum of $2,500. We have 1 land use change tax in the sum of $17,850. We have the town clerk tax collector reconciliations for October and November. We have a purchase order 21-33 for the Jeff Lane batting cages in the sum of $17,759. We have a purchase order number 21-34 for a fire command vehicle in the sum of $35,892. Are there any items members would like to remove from consent? Hearing none, do we have a
Mr.
motion?
Chairman?
Yes.
Could you explain, or could Troy explain the DRA assessment ratio?
Sure. So that's our assessing firm will every year will take a look at the sales for the last 12 months, and they'll do a calculation. They can compare our assessment to what the market value is.
Oh, okay.
And so even though we just went through an update and we try to get the town at about 100% a year ago or two, right now our assessment value is about 85.8% of fair market value.
So fair market value has increased 14% or so on average. and there's a typo. Did you see that?
Yes,
typo?
ratio.
That's what I was like.
Just a little French or something.
Ratio.
Ratio.
Is it 8% or is it 8 number?
What'd you say?
The way it's 85.
We have a motion by Mr. Leary.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. LaSalle's. All in favor, Mr. Leary.
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch.
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500. Is there any other business members would like to add this evening?
The, do we have it on the agenda for the firing range?
No, but I'll mention that in my town administrator report.
Okay.
Public input will occur no earlier than 6:45 PM. First item of business is the November 22nd, 2021 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review, and are there any comments or corrections?
I'd like to make an addition, if that's all right. On page 9, halfway down, it says Ms. Queenan mentioned she had a handout and she would upload it to the handout to the site. I'd like to change the next sentence to say she noted that the planning board had done the following work. And I would like to add to date, comma, regarding the potential sidewalk and land uses in the commercial area. And then I would like to add number 6 on that item. So how there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 6, we went over everything I discussed. I'd just like to add 6 being the planning board is now looking at all the master plan chapters.
Okay, thank you.
And that is it.
Do we have a motion to approve based on the changes? Motion by Mr. Leary.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lynch. All those in favor, Mr. Leary.
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch.
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500. The next item we have is the NCHIP Police Department grant application. Mr. Brown.
Okay. So we have our police chief and police captain here this evening. They've both been working together on the InChip grant application. They're here this evening to talk to you about it and hopefully seek your permission to go ahead and formally submit the grant application. And I believe Captain Scotty, you're working.
Oh, me? Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
Wolves.
You're working
You as
directly
always.
with the state. and,
Evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, everyone.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. So I've been working on this for a little over a year now. The NCHIP grant, it's a federal grant that's dispersed to the states for the purposes of upgrading technology. So what happens in this case is that the Department of Justice is given X amount of those federal dollars that they've been awarded. And through the DOJ, they dole it out to municipalities throughout the state for various forms of technology, one of which is an APHIS machine, an APHIS live scan machine. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it is a digital laser fingerprinting imaging computer. So it has various uses. It is a major technological advance for us because currently we're still doing the old-fashioned ink prints. So if someone were to be arrested, which is the most common form of use for fingerprinting, we take those fingerprints and we have to collect them, and then we drive them up to the state, and then the state has to manually put them into the system. This right here, it's all digital. It instantaneously goes up to the state. It also offers a benefit to the town as well. Various permits and forms like nurses licensing and that type of stuff. Teachers, they require APHIS prints. So this would be a service that we'd be able to offer to the town as well, coaching, those types of things. People who go for special firearms permits and whatnot, we'd be able to fingerprint them right away, and you get the results instantaneously. So it's a great piece of equipment. And the beauty of this grant is it covers the cost of the entire piece of equipment, which is $19,825. So
I'm sorry, how much did you say?
$19,825. So initially it was a match grant and we were going to be on the hook for $5,000 of it, but the state police has decided to pick up the tab. So you don't have to pay any of it.
Is there a yearly service charge?
So that is where we will be on the hook for yearly. It's $3,000 for licensing and fees. So, but I'm coming to you tonight because in order to move forward with the application packet, I need to get a certificate of authority. in order to be able to enter into agreements with them, with the state for it. So that's what I'm looking for.
Fantastic.
So move.
So,
As always, you guys always find great grants, and we appreciate all the work. We have a motion by Mr. LaSalle's, second by Mr. Larry. All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
aye.
Mr. LaSalle's, Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500.
Thank you.
If I just may real quick, Mr. Chairman and board members, I just want this to serve as a constant reminder for you as board members, the town administrator, the finance director, and our respected citizens. This is an effort under our leadership to take every advantage of any grant that's available to us. That's why you've seen certain trainings that the captain has attended for grant writing. And you'll continue to see these because we feel that there's an opportunity for us as a department and us as a town. And the captain and myself, as you know, we've worked with the fire department, and we hope to work with other departments to take advantage of these grants. So I just want you to know this is one of our goals when we had the great opportunity to accept these respective positions. And you will continue to see these grants come before you, and we hope to continue to have great success. I'm very proud of the hard work that the captain's done, and I appreciate your support in allowing us to pursue these opportunities. So I just wanted to share that with you, and thank you.
Of course. I, for one, am very grateful. You guys have been knocking it out of the park. Finding all kinds of ways to save money for the taxpayers and get better services for us and for your personnel.
Yes, sir.
It's been my,
Fine.
it's been my personal experience to have my fingerprints taken multiple times. So I think this is a really good thing, technology and so forth. Do other towns have this capability?
Yes.
Do most towns?
Yes.
Okay.
Most larger communities.
When I initially called the state to kind of harass them for this piece of machinery, they were shocked we didn't have one, because being in the southern tier of the state, everyone around us has one. Londonderry, Hudson, Merrimack, Nashua, Manchester, Bedford, Pelham, Salem, Wyndham, everybody around here has them.
Lower to the Massachusetts border.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the beauty is if an officer needs this technology, typically right now, say on a late night, and there may be only 2 patrol officers, one officer maybe going to Manchester, to Hudson or Londonderry, and then we're at their disposal for when they're able to process those fingerprints. So it's a great resource to have for our officers and to keep our resources in town. It makes us more self-sufficient.
It's a great investigative tool as well, because if you have a suspect in a crime where you've lifted a fingerprint, you can actually go back into the system and pull their fingerprints and send them with the fingerprint you pulled up to the state, and they'll do an instant analysis.
So they can retrofit
Yes.
these.
So the way the machine works is every time your fingerprints are taken, it will mix and match the fingerprints to make the best possible complete set. So say somebody, John Smith, was arrested 15 times throughout his life. His first arrest was when he was 19, and his last arrest was when he was 45. And his left index finger was so-so when he was 19, but it's really good when he's 45. It will take that one. It'll take this one from when he was 22, this one, and it will make the best complete set of prints. It'll also help you with, I've seen this a few times, where you get a person who will refuse to identify themselves, and you have no ID, and you have, but you're arresting them. You run them through the system, you run their fingerprints, it instantaneously sends them to the FBI, runs them through the database, and it will come back with a hit. Because if they give you a false name, it's going to tell you who those prints come back to. And you'll get it'll get it right away. It'll just light up red, and there you go. So
I wonder if we have these machines on our southern border.
I'm saying nothing.
they have actually small ones that they use. Really, really small ones. Immigrations and Customs
So
Enforcement.
that's how they figure out they're gangbangers.
I don't know. I just have seen it when I was over in my Hudson days.
I'll bet you that's how they do it.
They've come out on a few occasions, and they have their own system. It's miniature, and they just take a few prints and it runs it through their database. So pretty cool.
Technology.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
They can get you faster.
Yeah, Kevin.
I'm trying to figure out why you had to take so many yours taken.
Well, thank you again for your support. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Great job,
Greatly
guys.
appreciate everything.
Absolutely great job.
Can you move your, Chief, does it make sense for Troy to,
Do you want the
cover-
chief because the chief and I had a conversation
Okay.
today, and I think
It's a-
Captain Scotty, you're probably involved in it
it's just
too.
a suggestion. I mean, if the
Move,
chief's here-
move it up so they can go home.
Okay.
I don't mean
Well,
it that
I
way.
think if you want to come back, the Board of Selectmen received an email this weekend. I believe you all received it.
Which one?
Including myself. And it's regarding the incident that occurred month and a half ago when there was a bullet that struck a house. I guess there were several bullets that were found. The Litchfield Police Department, the Londonderry Police Department has been conducting investigative work. These residents are still very, we discussed this matter at one of our meetings. We, at that time, decided the best course was to allow the police departments to conduct their investigation. But at this point in time, I think the residents are looking for further action, if any.
Well, they also
Whatever
looking for an
legally
update.
the town
They were
can
wondering
do.
where we were.
And so the chief and I were actually talking about this morning, and I think it's a great opportunity for the chief or Captain Scotty to give a little bit of an update of what you can share with the general public as far as the investigation that's going on. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm not sure. The conversation we had today is how much of it was public and
No, so I will ask Captain Scotty to speak to this. As this incident progressed and gained a lot of attention, Captain Scotty and Detective Chris Ryder were assigned to investigate this, and they've spent an extensive amount of hours working with the reporting parties, working with our neighbors at the Londonderry Police Department, working with the Londonderry Fishing Game Club, speaking with numerous citizens who walk, bike in our residents of that immediate area in question. We've reached out to our counterparts at the Fish and Game, the ATF. We've reached out to the Code Enforcement Office from Londonderry. And so it's been quite an extensive investigation. We've submitted ballistics that were recovered by our agency through a thorough search conducted from the reporting party's garage. Those items were submitted to the state lab for analysis. We have been able to make some assumptions. We have not been able to make a definitive conclusion as to if the projectile involved in the reported incident specifically came from the Londonderry Fish and Game Club, or if it came from other sites where people lawfully shoot. And could it be from somewhere else where someone is unlawfully shooting? At this point, we cannot definitively say. With that, I will pass it over to Captain Scotty to expand on that a little further and expand on your contact with Londonderry and what you know to their investigation at this time.
So obviously, as the chief said, we recovered a round from the house and a round from another house, which were sent to the state lab. And once we received those reports, we forward our end of the investigation to Londonderry, because the only possible conclusion is that any of those rounds came from Londonderry, because Londonderry, the house the house on Tanager that's in question, the next house over is in Londonderry. So, and across the street in the woods behind there is Londonderry. Now, the issue you have is there's a vast amount of woods in there that people hunt and people shoot. There's power lines where people shoot. And then you have the Londonderry Fishing Game. And so one of the big issues that we run into is the state, along with us, lack the resources to ballistically determine where the bullet originated from. Okay. I call the state lab. The state lab does not do those they don't do those type of calculations at all. Their stuff is more geared towards, when it hits on a human, or what have you, or determining the caliber of the bullet. The caliber of the rounds that were both removed from the house were, if I remember correctly, were the same, and they're a common round. So it's quite possible that it could have come from the woods. It could have come from there. Anywhere. Exactly. So, but the most likely thing is that it came from Londonderry. So we forwarded all of our reports over to Londonderry. Londonderry assigned Sergeant Tim O'Donoghue to their end of the investigation, and that kind of concluded our end of it, because at that point it's their investigation to determine whether or not it's people in the woods or if it's the fishing game club or what have you. The only other thing I can tell you is that through the investigation, I learned that there is no regulations on gun clubs, on how they have to build their berms or any of that stuff. And I believe it is unlawful they were having problems with people shooting in Londonderry in those woods across from that house. So they've been having issues with that. And they've also been having issues with people shooting in the power lines, the same caliber that we pulled from the house. So it's kind of at that point on our end, we have no further leads, and we can't interfere with Londonderry's investigation. And the other issue we run into is, besides jurisdictional bounds, they're a different county. They're a completely different county. So,
And if I may, from an enforcement standpoint, I would just draw your attention to the beginning of this year. We had legal shooting in the town forest where a round went into a house off of Hillcrest.
correct.
An immediate investigation ensued. We were able to locate the scene of the shooting. We were able to identify the shooters. We were able to conduct an investigation and determine that they were not shooting in a safe manner. And warrants were applied for, warrants were granted, and these individuals were arrested and charged with felonies, felony reckless conduct. We take this matter very serious, and any type of incident like this gets my and our department's full attention, and we act on it. So sometimes it's hard to trust the process, and especially as we have our neighbors in Londonderry and Tim O'Donoghue, who we all know is a well-qualified marksmanship, firearms expert, well versed in firearms. And at this time, as they conclude their investigation, we wait patiently, and we make sure to continue that our residents are safe. And if anything else happens, we're going to go at it full force. That's my promise to this board and to this town.
Is there, a couple questions, is there any evidence that these homes, that you say there's two projectiles, at least two, or what?
Yes.
Two,
At least
the same house or different houses?
different houses.
So there's no indication that these houses this was done purposefully.
No,
It
there was
an
such a
accident.
time lapse between them
Yes.
that that did not seem likely at all.
Okay, when you say it's almost certain that it came from Londonderry, it doesn't mean it's from the Londonderry.
No, the town of Londonderry,
Okay.
because there is an expanse of woods across, and then there's power lines, and then the Londonderry fishing game is way over there.
That's the other question I have. From the houses that were hit, how far is it to where the Londonderry shooting place where people shoot from?
I don't want to misquote it. I believe.
Just
100 feet?
Yeah, it was close to a mile, I think.
Yeah.
But there's an elevation change as well. There's an 85
mile away.
There's an 85-foot drop in elevation, though.
Okay, so
Yes, but again, we are nowhere near qualified to make a jump that we could say for certain.
okay, for the layman that I am, a 9mm shot, how to travel a mile,
Gotta be a big gun.
would that require a handgun? Would not do that, right? Would a handgun, unless you shot it like this?
There's many variables,
Yeah.
and that is certainly not my expertise.
No.
And judging by your shooting, it's certainly not. No, just
I know a 22 caliber round can go a mile if it's unobstructed, but you're talking no wind, perfect conditions. There's a whole slew of factors that go into it. humidity. I mean,
Yeah.
How many grains were actually in it?
yeah, there's just so much. That's why we don't lack the education per se to be able to come to that determination. And there's nobody around here without spending a huge amount of money out of
Yeah.
pocket to have them look at an expert to look at that and determine that. I mean, there's you got to look at the ammunition because there's match grade ammo. There's everything else. The type of gun that it was shot from, the temperature that day, the humidity that day, the wind direction. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they would have to go into and
So-
research.
Behind these houses,
Mhm.
are there woods?
Yes,
Mhm.
not the house. So I'm going to do a little doodle for you.
Okay.
So
You want to point it on the map?
yeah, don't mind my doodle.
Yeah.
This is Tanager. This is like my little circle here.
Yeah.
We got house 1 here, house 2 here, woods here, and there's houses here, here. This is Londonderry. The rounds came in this general direction.
So they had to go over other houses.
Potentially. It could have gone between them. It could have gone over them.
But they're the houses that were hit are not the closest houses.
No.
Oh, wow.
Nope.
That's interesting.
Well, we know the severity of this, and we know that you guys are putting your resources into it, and we appreciate that. We really do. I know you told me you were spending many hours of your own time on this, as well as your 2 officers. So thank you for that. It should be hopefully a little comforting to those in that area.
Greatly appreciate all your efforts and your update.
Sure.
Thanks for the update. And it's a hard thing to project, excuse the expression. Because it's really, think about it, the distance, it could have came from anywhere.
So in response to the email that we got, what do you suggest? I mean, obviously it's still under investigation
That's it.
by us and Londonderry. Probably at this point, more Londonderry than you guys.
Correct.
So
Maybe we should have the chief just reply with an update.
I didn't receive the email initially. I have had an opportunity to briefly review that.
Okay.
I would be more than happy to reach out to the family and provide an explanation, and I can forward it to Troy first for your approval, or I'm happy to give an update just like we have.
I'm very comfortable you doing it. Everybody else comfortable if
Absolutely.
chief does it himself?
I'd be more than happy to
You could
take
do
care
that for us. That'd be
Yes, sir.
fantastic. Get back to our resident.
Yes, sir.
And then I didn't know if the board would want to share that correspondence with our legal counsel to see if there is, anything that you as a board, I know the police department is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but I'm not aware of what we as a board can do.
That's a great
I
idea.
mean, there's
Run
no
it past
evidence. I
her.
mean, these are all allegations, and
Correct.
you cannot just start making assumptions without.
With the severity, I
investigation.
think we should
But
pass
still,
over
what
just to make sure.
is there anything as the Board of Selectmen? Is there anything in addition that you can do besides the ongoing investigation? I don't know.
This is still under investigation until the chiefs speak to the other chief. They review what's going on, come up with an update from Londonderry, and they'll still tell us where things are going. And I'm responding back to the gentleman, just tell them we're still doing it. Londonderry's got the lead. Okay. And as a Board of Selectmen, we have nothing to say or do about it yet. We don't know exactly.
I think it would behoove us also to not just respond to the latest email,
Correct?
but send it to all the homes that are up there in that vicinity. So we're not just responding to one particular person because it affects everybody. So I would say
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if some of you know, but I live up in this neighborhood, so.
aha, it's you.
But I don't have any weapons. But
Could you check
the neighborhood's small, and they're all, I think that might be that's a good suggestion. That
Especially
we
when
reach out to that neighborhood and let them know what's going on.
Especially in the the houses that are actually, they're going over or between or whatever.
You're at the top of the hill where the cul-de-sac is, then it goes back down into London
Right.
and back down into Litchfield.
Yep.
Okay? You're on the projection there. And it's all, you got all woods, the height of it and everything else. And we don't know how the projectile got in there in the first place. That's the bottom line. It just went to a piece. What angle? We had nothing. Okay? And Scotty, thank you for finding the projectile. I must know that. You did find it for me.
And maybe, we've been making plans all along to take the Merrimack Island. Maybe we have a contingency plan to take care of Londonderry.
Put that in the letter.
The militia.
Thank you, gentlemen. We greatly
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Chief.
Thanks for everything you do.
Okay, Scotty.
We appreciate it. They dress up nice.
They do. They really do.
You still carrying a side out? After what he said? Okay.
I told them to for you.
You are such a nice
And next we
guy.
have the compact tractor purchase.
Really
Mr. Brown.
it's really a tranquilizer gun. For him.
Mr. Brennan. Mr.
Okay,
Gannon
we
with us.
have Mr. Brennan representing the Conservation Commission and Mr. Gannon representing the Rec Commission. Both commissions have been working together and identified a need for a small compact tractor. They put together an RFP, went out and solicited bids. They are planning to do this, make this a joint purchase, and here to give you an update on their process they used and recommendation as the vendor that they'd like to purchase the tractor from.
Thank you and welcome.
How come your print's so small?
We put together a little presentation. I just want to know, is it worth it?
Did you bring
Sure.
popcorn?
No.
I always like seeing your
Then
presentations.
it's not worth it.
Get your teeth on up.
It wouldn't be the same if Jay didn't plug in.
Hit the TV.
You say, is it worth it? I think you're insulting us when you say that.
Well, you've got a lot of stuff going on, so we don't want to waste your time.
Never a waste of time.
There we go. Okay. Bear with me a second. So we're here tonight to talk about the purchase of a compact tractor. The Recreation Commission and the Conservation Commission feel that there is a significant need for equipment to help maintain our properties. We've got a lot of conservation land that is farmland that has been overgrown in the past, and we need to maintain it. We need to maintain our current and future properties. We need to maintain our trails. We need to maintain our recreational areas. We've got a lot of small projects that we might want to complete, like brushing out the old muster field and restoring that to its original condition. There's things like volleyball courts that we could put in. There's ways that we could clean up Darapon Beach, but we simply just don't have the equipment. So we got together as a group and started to look at different pieces of equipment that could support us. Couple of screenshots there. That's Morris Falls, 2018, only 3 years ago. That was unmaintained. That's what it looks like maintained. And, that's what it looks like maintained. From the conservation perspective, and myself personally, maybe not the whole commission, is that, if we're gonna purchase farmland, we should try to keep it as farmland. If we're gonna purchase fields, we should try to keep them as fields. If we're gonna purchase historical areas, you should try to keep them historic. That's just a personal opinion. And I think the same goes for on the recreation side of the fence. So this isn't something that the purchase of a compact tractor isn't something that just came up over the past month or two. We've been at this for about 8 months now. In the April-May timeframe, the Conservation Commission began discussion on purchase of equipment. We were looking at mowers. We were looking at compact tractors. We talked to the Recreation Commission, and they said, hey, if we could use a compact tractor. We can't use a mower, but we could use a compact tractor. Let's start thinking about doing this together. In the May-June timeframe, we presented information to both commissions, and we kind of came to a consensus that a compact tractor could support the needs of both commissions. In the summer, Chairman Gannon and I went down and we reviewed our different options. We visited dealers in the area. We completed a lot of research and we narrowed it down to what they call a quote unquote compact tractor, which is a 24 to 26 horsepower tractor that you can add a bunch of attachments to. A lot of people in town have these. In September, we got initial pricing just to get ballpark estimates on how much these things cost. And in the October, November timeframe, we both jointly had meetings of our commissions and decided to move forward. On the conservation side, it was a little bit easier because we have the conservation fund and we're able to get permission or agree to use a portion of that fund for the compact tractor. On the recreation side, it was a little bit more difficult because they're trying to figure out what they had left in their budget and how we could spend that.
Make them a short-term loan.
Yeah, possible. In November, the Conservation Commission approved spending up to $15,000 on the purchase of a compact tractor with monies coming from the Conservation Fund. In November as well, the Recreation Commission approved spending up to $15,000 at their November meeting. And I think Steve will tell me if I'm wrong, it comes from a combination of three spots. It comes from a combination of their existing budget, encumbered funds from last year, and then a little bit from their
Rec revolving if needed.
We then, once we got that permission, we went out and did a request for proposals. We talked to every single John Deere and Kubota dealer in the state. We got developed a specification that included a compact tractor, the front bucket, not the backhoe on the back, but a mower underneath. That was the base bid. And then we had options to put a brush hog on the back, a York rake on the back so we can clean up like Darapon Beach, and then add in an extended warranty on that. Sent it out to every single dealer in the state, had communications with them to make sure that they were going to submit bids. We got 5 back, and I think the max that we could have had was 5 back. So we had 100% basically response rate. The bottom line on the price is the low price was Chapel Tractor for the base bid was $21,580. With everything that we spec'd out was $26,780. The price range for all the proposals were between the $21,580 and $29,585. In the handout that I sent you, probably can't read that. I can't because I'm kind of going blind a little bit, but you can kind of see a tabulation of where we got the pricing from, all broken out by the different things that we asked for and totaled up.
On this one, we want to call out too that we also contacted Ryan Lane, who is our current field maintenance. Ryan works for Finch Turf down in Stoughton, Mass. And so we sent the RFP to Ryan too to see what he can give us as well. And he's the one in the middle for the price is 28. So actually he's the second best.
Yeah.
Ryan also talked to us about what we should do as far as an extended warranty and trying to fit up the extended warranty and where do we want to be. They all come with, I think, about a 2-year, but he was trying to estimate how many hours of service we can put on it. Tractors don't go by miles, they go by hours. So he came up with a rough estimate of what we should be shooting for as far as a warranty.
So all that is included in the packet. And then just the last thing is what we're looking to do is seek approval to award this to Chapel Tractor using the funds as described, with the $15,000 coming from the Conservation Fund and then the rest coming from various different locations in the recreation budget. So we're trying to just do it within the funding that we currently have right now. We feel that there is a payback to this. So
Yes.
tractor is $26,000. Just to give you an example, to have somebody mow the Morris Falls field, so that's being done by volunteers right now. If we ever have someone mow that, $6,000 a year. If you take a look, and I'll let
We just signed a new contract with our land maintenance, field maintenance contractor next year. We did go through and we broke it up into 2. One is the true field maintenance, our sports fields and treating and getting those areas cut. And then the other one would be like the area by John Bryant River Access or some of the fields where you're not going to use a nice commercial class lawnmower, but you're just going to use a brush hog. We split those up. The second part of just mowing the perimeter grass and the crabgrass and et cetera, that is alone is $12,000 a year in that contract out of the $83,000. And I believe with this, we will be able to next year maybe the year after, once we get comfortable with it, possibly pull that portion out of the contract and do it by volunteer labor or summer intern or something. But we believe we should be able to pull that out.
This is probably the best bid process we ever saw. It really was. With the whole specification, the amount of people that came back, it was fantastic.
Very well done, I must say that.
Is it a four-wheel drive tractor?
Yes, it'll be the
Some
Kubota.
areas that are wet, you definitely. don't
Yeah.
want a four-wheel.
That's a four.
Yeah, so it's we tried to stay below the 33 horsepower because then you started getting into emissions.
Yeah.
So 26 horsepower seems to be the middle of the road.
Sure.
It's not a subcompact tractor. It's not a 1 series. It's a 2 series. The front bucket they all come with the front bucket. 60-inch mower would be very beneficial for conservation. Recreation is more interested in the brush hog and the York rake. Of course, with every compact tractor, you have a 3-point hitch on the back, and you could attachments and accessories later on are very, very cheap. Well, relatively cheap. Most expensive part would be the brush hog and the mower.
Yep.
It is 4-wheel drive. We also quoted with this one, if we get the Chapel Hill tractor, it comes with the R14 radial hybrid tires. So it's a combination. It's not the aggressive typical tractor tire, and it's not a turf tire that you'd see on your lawnmower. It's a hybrid. It's a mix combination of the two. And it would be the rear tires will have beet juice is what they use to add some more weight to the back of the tractor and help us out.
It's also possible to put a saline solution in the tires.
Yeah.
Have you talked with the highway department about whether they could also use this?
I don't know. The highway department has larger equipment. This would be on the smaller side compared to what they have. And they have, I believe they have a skid steer. So this would be about the size of a skid steer, I guess you could say, but less weight. And then this particular model with the Kubota, the front bucket actually uses skid steer attachments. So you could actually pull 2 pins and you could roll up and put on another skid steer attachment up front. We haven't engaged them to answer your question. No, not yet. We will speak to them if it's something they need to borrow or whatever. We could certainly work it out, but I don't know if it'll actually fit into what they do. They have bigger equipment.
Can you expound on that, Troy? It seems like this tractor could be used in a lot of different ways,
I was talking to the road agent today about it, and definitely having access to a brush hog could be something that they could use doing some roadside mowing in select areas like along Albuquerque. They have the big long thing, but if you just wanted to once a year kind of go up and down Albuquerque and just push back a little bit, we thought it'd be a really good application.
What do they use on the bike path? Do you know?
So that we're using mowers right now, and as you could, we mow pretty much just the side where the bike path is, but the opposite side of the road is where, over the years, the vegetation is encroaching to the edge of the pavement. And this tractor with the bush hog could be a good tool to use to cut back a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Where are you going to garage it?
So the plan, good.
Is that the Recreation and Conservation Storage Center? Also known as the old fire station? Sorry, I had that lined up.
We were at.
We should charge rent.
Don't step on his comedy.
I know.
The best thing
I
John
should've
Burnell
known.
ever did was put a key fob system down there. We got more people coming and going, but we know who they are.
We have been at the old fire station or the Recreation Conservation Storage Facility. There is still plenty of room
There is a lot
that would be able to fit a tractor. We're also looking at, we will be purchasing a trailer for it, which will be a typical flat bed. It'd be like an auto trailer, about 16 to 18 feet.
That was my next question. To trailer it from Dare Pond to
Yeah, wherever.
Then after that's a post hole digger.
In a postal digger, yeah.
Does
in
this
a rotary-
does this have a postal digger?
It does not, but it's a 3-point standard type 1 attachment, so you could put one on. A post hole digger, I've seen them online for $980. So a lot of those attachments are relatively cheap when you think about it. But that would be something we would.
Then you're
definitely
gonna
discuss.
need a truck to pull that trailer.
No, well, that's the nice part is this tractor without anything on it's only about 2,300 pounds. It's relatively light. When you put all the attachments, I would say it probably goes to the 4,000 pound. So with the trailer, any half-ton pickup can pull it. On the Recreation Commission, pretty much all of us have a truck that will pull it, and conservation's close to it, and we're always willing to lend a
Chevy
hand.
pull it?
The old one will. That's a big 10.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yes, it is. That's what I was
Might
talking
not
about.
stop it, but it'll pull it, and we'll have to go
No,
get
I
them
got a
gas.
braking system on
Yeah,
that.
it'll stop.
You know, this isn't the first tractor that the Recreation Commission has purchased.
Really?
No.
It's the first one I'm aware of. Where's the other one hiding?
Yep.
When I was on the Recreation Commission, when we built the field at Dare Pond, we went to J.D. Hale
Yep.
and bought a Super C farmall, and then separately bought Bush Hog.
Yep.
And I spent many hours on that Super C. Earlier, I talked about the Babe Ruth field and the water. A lot of it was that Super C that I used to mow the grass over there using that Bush Hog. But, and when we expanded the beach at Roy Memorial Park, we did that by having somebody come in and dump sand on top of the ice.
We're not going to talk about that. That's illegal now, Rich.
They dumped sand on top of the ice, and I got out there with we had a York rake on that Super C, and I was spreading that sand out. And guess what? Went through the ice. Luckily, it wasn't
too deep.
It wasn't too deep. But I was like, and it really didn't hurt the Super C either.
Nope,
Can't kill those.
But that was
I know where it is now too.
So as far as I know, this is something
Hi, boy.
Mr. Leary's always interested in. Is at this point in time there'll be no tax impact to the citizens because it come out of the conservation fund, and the recreation has a couple of line items that I'd like to use, and I'll be seeking approval from you. I've talked with Karen and Troy once before about this. So my portion will be about $15,000. There's three line items of encumbered funds that I would like to use. Two of the projects have been completed. One project we're not going to do. There was $8,000 encumbered for the Talents Hall stairway. I could give you a line item if you want. It's 01-9551.20.002. This task was completed. A new deck was built. And thank you to Litchfield's, one of Litchfield's unsung heroes, Mr. Jim Spots. He coordinated with the Air National Guard, and they were able to build the whole deck and complete the project. Free labor. We paid for the materials. So that is done. That leaves a balance of $3,932.48 in that line item. We encumbered $2,500 for Darapon bark mulch. This was completed by Mr. Tim Leary, who gave us a great deal on mulch and delivered 30 yards.
And this tractor could help finish spread it.
And this, yeah, it's still
There's
sitting
still a
there.
pile there.
So that leaves us, that leaves us $1,690 in that line item. And the last one was Darapon Gate. We encumbered $5,000 to move the gate, but we could never really, as a commission, come up to how, when, where, and what we would do on it. So it was just tabled. So that $5,000 is still sitting there too. The nice thing, if we get this with a post hole digger, then we could probably move it for ourselves or for free. So that comes up to a total of $10,000, $622.48. So the difference on my side will be $4,000, $4,377.52. I have a couple line items because of COVID last year. Obviously, Talent Hall wasn't used. So the custodial budget, we have about $3,200 still sitting in there. We have 2 weeks left. So I'd like to pull $1,588.72 from there. We have a program expense that we have $1,288 left in there. And then building repair and maintenance, we still have $3,700. So pull $1,500 from that, which would account for the $15,000. So there'd be no tax impact going forward. we're at this point.
Thank you. See, you like orange instead of green.
Or blue.
Blue too, red.
I mean, does it make sense for us to see if the highway department would like to chip in?
I think this evening you've got a group here that's been working for well over 8 months. They've had communications with the highway department, and I think we have everything we
set.
need this evening to vote, approve this, and I know that the highway department will, like we said, that they'll be able to utilize the piece of equipment, and hopefully, if they need help moving it around, storing it, some light maintenance, that the highway will be
Yep.
returning that favor.
We're hoping there might be a trailer over there.
I think there is.
There you go.
There's the pitch in.
Quid pro quo, right there.
Yeah. And I think we've had conversations that,
Bad word because
communicating with the highway department, they could move the vehicle, the tractor
That
from
if
point
we
A to
do-
point B and pick it up Monday morning or whatever.
So we did, so the plan would be utilize the recreations funds to put the deposit on it and, order it. We have reached out to, the crazy part is, the tractor is available at Chapel, but they don't have attachments. The John Deere dealers have the attachments, but they don't have a tractor yet. So they all said that they should be able to have something to us before spring of next year. I don't want to take possession of a tractor and start the warranty, but then we don't do anything with it. And then of course, one of the Continental Paving purchases a lot of equipment from Chapel, and they're very easy to work with, as far as you could tell.
I think Tim's Turf does too.
Tim's does.
oh yeah.
Yep.
I think that's one of the reasons why we got such a great deal. When we talked to him, we mentioned where we were, and he's like, "All right, I'll show you what you want, but I'm going to give you to this guy."
So what's the will of the board?
Do we need to encumber?
Well, I think if you make a motion to approve the purchase with the funding that's been stated this evening, and then Karen and I will be coming back. You'll have one more meeting this year, and we will be providing you a comprehensive list of encumbrances.
I'll make a motion then that we approve the purchase of the Kubota with the arrangement as agreed to between the rec and the conservation, as was presented tonight, the $26,000.
You need the full amount, right?
Yeah, and I think we'd actually like you to approve it for the full $30,000, just in case there's something pops up or,
That's all.
If the trailer
I'll go with
doesn't
that.
work, or if we
Say-
need to put
say
maintenance.
not to exceed.
Not to
There you
exceed
go.
$30,000.
Second the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch, second by Mr. LaSalle's. Do we have any further discussion?
I just say it's a good tractor, and for that money, it's a really good deal.
And they last a long
They
time.
do if you take care of them.
Could you see if you could get us a federal grant?
Scotty,
Wisconsin.
Yeah, we need Scott.
He went home.
All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
I
Mr. LaSalle's, Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen, for all your hard work.
Ladies, we'll be in touch. I'll send you the information I have, and we'll talk about the details.
Okay.
I can let you borrow a belly mount if you need it.
Belly mount?
Oh, looking for a post hole digger.
Have a 60.
Nice pictures, Jason. Those.
For a Kubota?
Yeah,
That's what sold it, was the picture.
huh?
For a Kubota?
For Kubota.
You're
For
going
my
to
Kubota. Yeah.
Okay, it's 8:00. We gotta
Now, good night, guys. Take
get
care.
moving here.
Next, we
Lot of
have
work
3
left to
minutes
do.
or less,
Can we
Troy.
do all three public
3
hearings?
minutes or less.
3 minutes or less.
You better do public.
Can we do all three public hearings at once?
I would just open one up,
All right.
do it, you close it.
First,
vote.
we have a public hearing for the acceptance of Firefly Way.
Okay.
We have a motion to open.
I make a motion, we open.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch, second by Mr. LaSalle's. All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's, Mr.
Aye.
Lynch, Ms. Queenan. I
Aye.
am also an aye.
Okay. We have provided public notification, printed in the newspaper, follow the procedure that is required for the Board of Selectmen to accept streets as a public way or public street. This Firefly was one of our recent subdivisions. Lou Caron's a town engineer that works for the planning board. Kevin Brown's a road agent. They both have been involved in inspection work. Everything is fine with them, and we've been in touch with the developer and coordinating the snow plowing and salting for the transition from private to public. So it's all ready to be accepted by the board. There will be a performance bond that will be put in place for 2 years in case the road has any defects that appear. But the binder was put down a year ago. It's gone through the winter, and the final wearing course was done this spring.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that like to provide input? Seeing none, we'll close public input on the matter.
Anybody on the phone?
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Larry, second by Mr. LaSalle's. All those in favor, Mr. Larry?
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's?
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing for the acceptance of Firefly?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Larry.
Second.
Second by Mr. LaSalle's. All those in favor, Mr. Larry?
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's?
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Next is a public hearing for the acceptance of the health trust funds in the sum of $55,200.26. Do we have a motion for the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Larry,
Second.
second by Ms. Queenan. All those
Go
in
ahead.
favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Brown.
Okay, so the health trust funds, we're part of a pool. And every year that when they go back and they look at their previous, expenses, if there is a surplus, then they are portioned up and given back to the communities that participated in the pool. So we were very pleased to learn that we received payment of $55,226. So you'll accept these funds, we'll credit them back to the health insurance lines in the operating budget. Also, just so you know, employees will receive their portion of reimbursement because the town contributes 80% and employees contribute 20%. So that will be divvied up that way as well.
Any questions or comments?
If it goes into the health trust line, does that go against the budget?
It's a credit to those health insurance lines. Yeah.
That helps us.
So it's a revenue.
Well, we'll be crediting the expense lines. So it's not really revenue, but I mean, it comes in as unanticipated funds.
Yep.
We credit those expense lines. So the turn back, it basically creates an unexpended balance in those health insurance lines,
Okay.
surplus.
So we save
All that.
whatever it was in this, yeah.
We keep it there till next year.
No, you can't do it that way. No.
Oh, okay.
So it's just those transactions that
Tried.
you got a budget approved for $100. Part of that was you thought you were going to spend $50 on health insurance. You only spent $40, so $10,000 is a balance at the end of the year of unexpended funds. That when you close your books, rolls into the unassigned fund balance.
So I know that the proposal for this year's health insurance came in lower. Is this just health insurance?
This-
Health and dental.
Health and dental?
Yeah.
No, how about workman's comp?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Do we have any members of the public that would like to give input to the acceptance of the health trust funds? Seeing none, we'll close public input. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Motion by Mr. LaSalle's,
Second.
second by Mr. Lynch. All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing for the acceptance of the health trust funds?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Larry,
Second.
second by Ms. Queenan. All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500. Next, we have a public hearing for the acceptance of ARPA funds in the sum of $904,623. Do we have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lynch,
Second.
second by Mr. Leary. All those in favor? Mr. Leary.
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch.
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Mr. Brown.
I think we should turn off the tape.
So probably should have brought this forward to the Board of Selectmen sooner, but I knew that we'd be doing some other public hearings. So try to, just group all of this together this evening.
Thank you.
As you know, we've been notified that the town of Litchfield will receive $904,623 of ARPA funds. ARPA funds stands for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. We have actually received our first payment, and that has been accounted for and deposited into a special fund that Karen has created called the ARPA Fund. And the second installment will be received sometime in early 2022. These funds can be used for, there's like 5 different categories. They can be used for public health expenditures. That would be something that you would do as a community that would help, fight or address the COVID-19 impacts. All of this would be COVID-19 impacts, except for one category, lost revenue. Second category is negative economic impacts. The third one is a loss of public sector revenue, which is something we've talked about before. There's a calculation that Karen has done to determine this. It really takes a look at 3 years of history of revenues, compares it to, what occurred during the pandemic. And based on that calculation, there's an amount that's determined to be lost revenue. And that, I won't know the exact amount, but that number is just over $800,000. If you use the funds in this specific category, there is the least restrictive. So there's still some restrictions, and they're still working on the final interim rule that all the towns and cities will be following. We're told that final rule will be out in early 2022. So
Which category is that? I'm sorry.
this is the lost revenue.
Item 3.
Kind of like the lost tribes.
Yeah. And then there is a category. The fourth category is premium pay for essential workers, which Rich, you talked about that a little earlier with Hillsborough County using some of their funds. And the fifth category is infrastructure, which is water, sewer, and broadband. So we this is here before you this evening to officially accept the funds. We will then put them into the holding account called ARPA, and no funds will be expended without the Board of Selectmen voting and approving. I've told you before that once we get a better handle on the actual uses of these funds and they come out with the final ruling, that we'll be working with the Capital Improvements Planning Committee and gathering input from our boards and committees and departments and trying to come up what we think is the best use of these funds and bring it back to the Board of Selectmen for consideration. So we kind of use the same process we used for the development of the capital improvement plan about a year ago. Some important deadlines that you need to be aware of is that the funds need to be obligated. In other words, we need to have them committed by a contract by December 31st, 2024. And they need to be expended by December 31st, 2026. There's also a possibility, I have not, when they first came out, that additional funds could come to this town, depending on, if other communities don't use their portions.
You had mentioned that they haven't got the rules of using this money down right or down yet.
They have what they call the interim rules, and
Okay.
so it does provide this, good guidance and gives you a good understanding of
Okay.
how you can spend the funds. But what's happened is when they came out with the interim rules, a lot of the cities and towns are starting to give feedback to the federal government saying, well, we don't understand this. Why'd you do this? So I do think that you're going to see some more clarity
Okay.
in certain areas and maybe some more flexibility.
Has any town refused these? Or
Um,
not applied for it, or?
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought some hadn't, because some didn't do the calculation of the lost revenue. And so most towns were just saying, we didn't lose any revenue. So they didn't do the calculation loss.
So you did the
I did the
calculation
calculation.
and we lost all that
So,
revenue?
well, so we didn't,
Now, be
per
careful
se.
now, be careful.
It was based on their guidelines.
of 4.1. So if you lost more than 4.1, you could use that calculation. If you used less than 4.1, you could use 4.1. So it was them telling us, if you lost less than 4.1, then say you lost 4.1.
They told you to lie.
To use the
There was
4.1 calculation, yeah.
The calculate, which Karen, did, but it has part of the calculation is that it had an expected growth
Of 4.1.
of 4.1%. And if you didn't meet that, then you qualified for lost revenue.
government
Doesn't mean that we actually lost revenue,
any, yeah.
but we didn't meet the growth that was
Yeah.
established. through
And the red flags are just going up. all
Yeah,
over the place.
like snake oil.
the little bit, I'm not an expert in this, the ARPA funds, but there's enough material out there now to really start to dig into it. But my basic take on it is that and what I'm hearing from other communities, they're really focusing in on a certain area, if it's infrastructure or just a couple major projects that they've been, that meet the criteria and they want to get that. Not to break it up into multiple 25 different areas where we're going to put, a new front door here and buy a shed here. That's not a recommended use of the funds. So we should be looking at items that were identified in our capital improvements plan that meets the needs of the ARPA grant. What is the purpose of it, and can really help help the community from where we're at right now over the next few years to financially just address some of our needs and not impact the residents.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, question, discussion?
Like retrofitting vapor barriers?
Don't get me going.
Not a bad idea.
No, it's not.
Do we have a motion to approve the ARPA funds in the sum of $904,623?
So
We're gonna
moved.
hold on to them, right? You moved it?
I moved it.
So save it for comments. Seconded.
Second by Mr. Larry. Further discussion?
And we're gonna hold on to the money, right? 'Cause I can see everybody knocking at your door tomorrow.
Yeah, 'cause I have
Says
to
that.
do reports on it every year and send it in on,
What it was spent it on and everything else,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
breakdowns,
yeah,
common.
Keep track of your time too. It says a special
yep.
fund for keeping track of this stuff.
You got a special
Yep.
time clock for that one?
Worry about us spending it and then getting a note that says we have to pay it back.
That's
Just don't
Yeah.
have
That's
that
the
level of
greatest-
trust. And
the greatest
Do our
concern.
due diligence before we decide to spend it.
we gotta do it twice.
Yeah.
I just, it's like money, just throwing it out there. Oh, man, this just goes against everything, I mean, it really does. I mean, there's no way that we lost that much money. It just,
Did
The
both
funding,
houses-
the federal funding that was very helpful was when the pandemic set in and we were able to get the sanitizers, the face, the protective
PPE stuff.
equipment, the premium pay that we were able to give our police and firemen and staff. I mean, all of that money, the dividers we had, all that was we didn't have that money budgeted.
No.
And that was very helpful. This will be helpful for the town politically, whether it's needed or not. In some communities, some of the harder hit cities and stuff, maybe. But it's your money. So it's,
All that stuff.
if we don't spend it, another community will.
I
Unfortunately.
understand.
Unfortunately.
But what you talked about, the dividers and the sanitizers and stuff, and even the premium pay, that's incidental compared to this.
Yeah, well, maybe we're not going to use all this.
Well, we got about 260,000 between
Yeah.
FEMA and COVID.
Did you?
250,000.
It's about 260
That was spent here.
for,
right?
for Gopher and FEMA, yeah.
Yep.
But now FEMA's giving me a hard time on my last request.
That was Gopher, right? That was Gopher.
Gopher was like 204,000, and then FEMA, I did the rest on. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's going to be.
but I'm scared.
We
Not gonna
can
lie.
just leave it there.
All those in favor, Mr. Larry?
If you put it in the money market account, that gets a return. At least we get something out of it.
Mr.
Nothing
LaSalle?
out there.
I guess so.
Mr. Lynch?
Get it, hold on to it. If we don't spend it, give it back. Okay?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing for the acceptance of ARPA funds?
So moved and
Motion.
sanitize.
Motion by Mr. Larry,
Second.
second by Mr. Lynch. All those in favor, Mr. Larry?
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle?
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500.
That was probably the most unenthusiastic. approval.
Isn't it? I mean, you should be.
The next item of business is the 2021 budget projections. Mr. Brown?
Make this short, please.
All right. Now I will make it short because this, the one message I wanted to get through to the board this evening, because it really leads into the next question, is about where we're sitting right now as we get very close to closing the books for 2021. And Karen's been working with department heads. We've been, going over the weekly budget reports. And right now we're pretty comfortable assuming that we're going to have about $100,000 of unexpended funds. It could be a little less, a little bit more, but as each week goes by, we're getting close to the end. And that estimate includes the credit that we just talked about previously, the health insurance, going back and putting credits in the lines. It includes the previous authorization for the police department, fire department to purchase vehicles. Some of the large areas of where we didn't spend money that was appropriated was in our legal budget. Personnel, which was really, that's driven by the benefits, the taxes, the workers, all that stuff that is driven by the weekly payroll. And we had some during the pandemic. We had people not working, and so we didn't experience all the costs that we thought we would. In the police department, we had some vacancies in officer positions. And the hydrants, at the time that we put together the estimate for the fire hydrants, we were unaware about the rate increase, and so that actually came in. The budget that we put together was a little higher than what the actual cost ended up being. And then debt, which is a little confusing because how could you not budget debt correctly? But we had to, when we put the budget together last year, we had to budget the full amount of the bond payment, but we had another warrant article that asked to take those the interest earned on the fire station bond and apply it to the debt payment. So that ended up leaving, about $20,000 in the debt line. Some of the large overages, really general government took a real beating. Some of our building maintenance exceeded. The fuel costs, our regular, the gasoline that's being used by our police and fire and highway, way over. In the streetlights category, this board approved to do the streetlight conversion. So we advanced some money to sign the contract with the company. So you'll see that, that line's way over. Solid waste is projected to be over. We'll see how it ends up, but again, that's sort of a combination of, I don't mean this in any bad way or anything, but the budget committee last year, they did make a reduction in the solid waste lines because they felt that a big increase was due to COVID and that was going to go away. And it didn't necessarily work out that way. And patriotic purposes when we purchase flags for the 3A and some other things there. So no real big surprises this year in the budget, other than, that energy cost that's just driving the gasoline and the propane.
Those are, you can't keep track of those each year, no matter what. Great, jump around.
So what we'll be doing is we'll, some of the budgets, some of the departments and committees, they'll have some work that's not finished where they, the discussion this evening on the compact tractor, and we won't be able to cut the check before year end. So we'll be coming back and asking the board for an encumbrance. One of the things that Karen and I are really standing firm on this year is that we're not having, we won't be recommending to this board any encumbrances unless there is a commitment, some type of contractual commitment that was not able to be completed in the budget. Not just, well, I got some money left over here, and well, I'd like to buy this. No open blanket encumbrances. So hopefully we're not really going to have a lengthy list of encumbrances this year.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the building inspector's vehicle. Mr. Brown.
All right, I had shared some information earlier with the board because I did want to have, a commitment from the board this evening. So I gave you some advance notice as requested at your last meeting. The building inspector's vehicle, we know, failed the state inspection in September. The underneath of the vehicle, I guess, is just the corrosion is substantial, and the frame itself it was rotted to the point where apparently it just didn't even make sense to try to repair the frame. So since September, our building inspector has been using his own private vehicle in the community. When we learned about the police department being able to purchase a new cruiser, we reached out to Chief Sergeant and asked if we could take the Tahoe that was coming offline, retrofit that, and convert it into an inspector vehicle. Well, recently I've learned that, the vehicle, the new Tahoe, is going to be manufactured sometime in March, and then eventually, make its way here to Litchfield, and then we have to do some conversion. So it could be some time before we're able to get a new inspector's vehicle, which is unreasonable for our current inspector to use his private vehicle for that length of time. Knowing that, based on our projections here, I reached out to Mac Mulkin and see if there's anything they could do for us. They provided with a list of vehicles, about 4 or 5 there, and various pricing. We initially were looking at maybe a small pickup truck, something like a Ford Ranger, Colorado, something like that. All of those are more expensive, but they came back with the best price as a state bid price, and the vehicle would be available December the 28th for a 2022 all-wheel drive Traverse. So the same vehicle that the police chief, the captain, and the detective is using. And I've just heard good reviews from the chief and his department that they're just great vehicles. And as you see, the vehicle that we've had right now, I guess, in a few weeks, will be 15 years old. I have no reason to believe that if we were able to purchase this brand new, that there's no reason to believe we can't get 10, 12, 15 years out of it.
Not a Toyota frame underneath this, is there?
No.
They did it for nothing.
And I have no other the other part is we have no other options. We have no other vehicles that I can turn to. So
And how would this be paid for?
So this would be paid for, we would just overexpend a line in the building department. And so there'd be an over expenditure, but the bottom line of our budget, is estimated that we're going to have about a $100,000 unexpended balance.
Unexpected expenditures, as they say in life.
Unanticipated.
Capital.
What's the budget committee attitude about something like this?
Yeah, Bob.
I think if it's not taxing on the public, they're generally receptive.
Mhm.
But I don't speak for everybody, but it seems to be, we've not had much of an issue in the past. And they know we need a vehicle, so. They're not awful people there.
No, I understand that, but if we didn't spend it, it would go back to the taxpayers.
If we
Right.
didn't spend it, it'd probably go in the general fund. I would give it to the taxpayers, but we know that doesn't happen.
So if you didn't spend it, it would become part of the unassigned fund balance. And then typically for what the Board of Selectmen has done is they've had warrant articles where they would ask to purchase something and recommend using the unassigned fund balance to make that purchase.
I don't see any problem with it.
We really have no other option. Right now, he's what, 57 cents a mile or whatever the federal.
Yeah, 56 cents a mile. And I mean, the great thing here is the fact that we have a state bid price in a vehicle that could be available December the 28th, which is, you talk to anyone trying to acquire a vehicle, is just unheard of.
And all-wheel
For
drive from a safety.
the state
standpoint.
bid prices,
Yes.
No,
I don't know. It was an unexpected event, okay? And
We have to consider our last driver of that vehicle.
it's always something.
Explains a lot.
Is there any core value to the Explorer?
I didn't discuss trade-in with them. Where it didn't pass the state inspection, I'm going to guess there's not a lot of value.
Venture into that because they may have needs,
Yeah.
parts or something that could be, they can use it for,
If not,
Yeah.
donate.
I wasn't the last person to drive it.
Yeah.
We get a tax write-off, we split it 5 ways.
There's our pay raise.
I make a motion, we authorize the purchase of building inspector's vehicle as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. LaSalle's.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Larry. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Chairman Weber,
Yes.
why didn't you and I get the memo about the maroon tonight?
I don't know. Guess we're not on that list, huh?
It's not.
Yeah.
Christmas.
I'm the only guy in
I
stripes.
don't own anything that's maroon, so
I don't think
there.
I do either.
We'll fix that for the next meeting.
Next, we have the
You said
2022 default budget approval. Mr. Brown.
Set yourself up.
Karen and I, we've been working on the default budget. As of right now, we've determined it to be $7,364,547. As when you compare this to what the budget committee has approved to date, it's $61,172 less than the budget committee's proposed budget. And just for everyone's knowledge, the default budget, what we do is we take a look at what was approved by the voters last year. And if there were any contractual changes, any one-time purchases, all those adjustments need to be made. And that's how we go about doing the calculation. So all one-time purchases would be removed and calculated. and any contractual increases. So a union contract would be any of the salaries and benefits would be allowed. We'd be able to increase what was approved last year based on that contract.
You are aware that the school department, the default budget is always greater than the proposed.
I know I don't know. We came close last year, but
Oh, we did only because of the town.
but
There is a move in the legislature to outlaw that. So this is good.
So I think the third year in a row, isn't it?
What's that tell you about
That the
this board?
school has
Well,
been.
that we've been lower.
I think last year because of the tower, I think we may have been slightly over.
Okay.
It wasn't
And-
much, so.
Yeah. But because that wasn't in, but it passed by warrant article,
Yeah.
we got to add it in. So that was huge.
Just goes to show our departments do a really nice job keeping it tight.
Especially the police department. I think they deserve a lot of kudos.
He's sitting over there. Be careful.
Oh.
I move to approve the default budget as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. LaSalle's. We have a second by Mr. Larry. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Larry.
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch.
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0. The next we have the 2022 budget approval. Mr. Brown.
Okay. So, we haven't talked about the budget a lot lately. You guys, did your thing, and then it went to the budget committee, and we spent 3-4 meetings with them going through the budget. But since that time, some of the numbers we due to a contract, or we didn't have the information when we put the budget together, we have to recommend some changes to the budget. And some of these are minor, but over the last couple of years, we haven't adjusted them, and I just wanted to have the opportunity to try to get it up to what the current cost is. So for advertising and regional associations, the added $209 is for the New Hampshire Municipal Association dues and membership. And so that would bring that up to $7,937. The fire chief contract, which the board just recently approved, it adjusted or increased that line item $13,814. The hydrants, which we've recently learned through the settlement agreement, which isn't still ratified, but there is absolutely no reason to believe that it will not be. I've worked with Penachuk to recalculate what they believe the cost will be, and they've come up with a reduction, or what I budgeted here is a reduction of $61,973. So our total budget would be $428,586 for hydrants. And then the Code Red software, again, a very small number, $304 increase, but for the last couple of years, we haven't adjusted it. So we've had increases, we've just absorbed it, and I'd like to try to get it to reflect the current charges. So I'm not sure how the board has, when we get, to actually approving the budget, usually the board will discuss the actions that the budget committee took. And Mr. Leary and I, with all the department heads, we've gone through that process. The adjustments that they've made, at the end of the day were, nothing to be really concerned about. And I think they've actually reserved, Mr. Hayes is going to take a look at what we budgeted for fuel. Because at the time in August, when I'm putting together the budget, the fuel cost was a lot different than what it is today. So when we meet Thursday night, we'll probably have that conversation. But so Thursday night, I'd like to be able to present these changes to the budget committee and see what happens. And then then we'll be talking warrant articles. And when we come off that meeting, I'll have the board vote on the operating budget, considering the budget committee's total bottom line. Typically, we always try to be in agreement with the budget committee.
Is everybody in agreement to keep those new values in the budget for the time being?
Troy, I saw on the news tonight the cost of gasoline has come down 2 cents.
Oh, really?
So-
Don't tell Mr. Hayes.
I think we
It's
can
almost-
say with a lot of confidence that the cost of gas is going to be 30-40% cheaper than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I can't remember what I budgeted per gallon for regular gas. I think it was
Short.
what was it? Was I up? No, it was $2.75.
Very short.
Yeah, it's what they use at the time of the
So-
budgeting process.
I thought
I thought we talked about $3.
No, I
You
didn't
didn't
read-
listen to me.
That whole conversation, $3.
Now look at him. Now look at him.
Well,
So now the other good thing is, if you're following the tax cap, because of recently setting our tax rate, remember, we received more money for revenue sharing, like almost what, $200,000 more.
Yeah.
So that had some play in our whole tax cap calculation. But as of right now, using the budget committee's number, where the operating budget itself is about $74,000 below the tax cap. Human service agencies, the committee met, and we'll talk about that when you review warrants. That came in at $21,255. So that brings you under the tax cap at $53,573. And with the highway position, it now puts you at $11,837 under the tax cap. And the part-time clerk position, that would put you at $2,693 under the tax cap. So all those warrant articles, you would still remain under the tax cap. So the discussion we'll have this evening is how many more articles you want to leave on the warrant, and of course the fire truck. But I can tell you that the board's had discussions about the operating budget, the highway position, the school resource officer position you'll hear tonight, the part-time clerk position, and we have supported the human service agencies.
Yep.
All those articles would come in under the tax cap.
Which is good.
that is good all the way around. Because we supported the highway guy all the way through, because they need somebody in
They
here
do.
more than any place else.
We make easy work of it. We keep all that. We top off all the reserves.
Mhm.
Get rid of all the other ones except the fire truck. And that will put us over. But we've all talked in the past. I mean, we're to the point now. I think we just got to throw it out there to the public and let them do it, knowing the budget committee is going to go against it. But we can talk about all those next. But at least we can get the personnel taken
That's
care
gotta
of
be
that's
fixed.
needed and stay under. Do we want to move on to the warrants?
Sure.
I gotta blow it up so I can see it. Gotta be a way of doing that.
So I don't know, Chief. If you want to jump out of order, we could do the SRO officer position, and then if you want to head home, you can. Or
I don't want to take up too much time. I'm happy to answer any quick questions or give a brief presentation, whatever the will of the board is.
You guys like to hear more about the SRO?
Sure, let's get him in, get him
Chief,
home.
come on
He's-
over.
He's elderly.
Come see us again.
thank you again. So we're talking about Article number 7, and Chief will explain to you what he's come up with, but it's asking to create a full-time school resource police officer position. The chief is using some existing funds in his department to try to achieve going from a part-time to a full-time position. I'll let the chief explain.
Thank you, Mr. Town Administrator. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, honorable board members. I'm really going to try to keep this short for you, as I know it's getting late. This warrant article came before you later in the season because we were waiting on a Department of Justice grant that we had applied for. It was the COPS grant. And we had applied for $125,000 that could be utilized over 3 years towards a new position in the department. We really felt confident about it. We had done a lot of research. We had worked with the state and felt really good that we were going to be able to come together with a great package that would have such a minimal impact on the taxpayers. Unfortunately, we were not one of the 3 communities that were awarded the grant. The city of Salem was, and then there was a small town up north and another community received the funding. With that said, we have a vacancy. It's a permanent part-time position that is budgeted for 32 hours a week. And this position does receive benefits, health insurance and dental insurance and whatnot. There is no retirement cost for this position, as this was filled by a retired full-time. It was Corporal Michael Coral, who was retired from the town of Londonderry and had worked with us as an SRO. When I came into this position, one of my immediate goals that I wanted to address was the school resource officer positions and how we utilize those within the schools and the communities. Very shortly after entering this position, COVID struck. We saw the schools go outside and go to remote learning. This board and the previous board had asked for spending to halt and for us to really tighten the reins. And that's what we did. And so as we moved forward and the quick resignation of Corporal Coral, I looked at an opportunity where I could meet one of the important goals and one of my priorities that I had when I entered office that has been delayed by about 2 years. We have budgeted for 2022 for the salary, which was a certified corporal full-time officer. He took a health insurance plan for single, dental was a single plan. Your other workman's comp and Medicare benefits was approximately $57,000. Karen was so kind to run the numbers with me. And if we were to bring in a new full-time police officer position, July 1st of 2022, and we looked at a 2-person health plan, 2-person dental plan, and whatnot, with the retirement contribution that the town needs to provide, the total wages and benefits package is approximately $49,000. So the savings is $8,428.59. It would have a 0%, no impact on the 2022 budget. I truly want to move away from some of these, from the, as time progresses, I want to move away from these permanent part-time positions, especially for specialty positions within the agency. And I don't want to spend a lot of time about the function of the SRO, and I certainly will. And I can certainly expand on the vision that I have for what a full-time position brings to us. But I can assure you that it enhances a safe school environment. It will continue to create a positive interaction with our youth and the police department. And we build trust between our youth and the police department. We build trust with our teachers, the district, and the police department, which is so important to the success. I believe it contributes to the success of the school district. I believe it continues to the success of the police department. I truly believe it contributes to the success of our youth. I want to bring back the DARE program. I want to create more relations with our youth. I want our dedicated full-time school resource officer to mentor our youth. I want them, again, to work to create a safe environment that focuses on preventing bullying. Bullying on campus, bullying off campus, bullying on the buses, cyberbullying. We've all seen the highlights in the news flashes of what's going on across the country within our schools. So I can't downplay the importance of the security of a permanent presence within our schools brings to us, to our students, to our teachers, to our parents, and to our citizens. Vigilance within our schools promotes good behavior. I've looked at the capital improvement plan. I've looked at the warrant articles that are before you, and I think you all know how I feel. I will never try to compete against any other department. I will only present to you what I believe in my heart and with my professional opinion is best for this town, as a community, as a department, for our children, the school district. I'm asking for your support. The impact in 2023 is minimal. It's approximately $41,000. I have an officer who's away at military for an extended period of time. So there are other monies available, and there's other options to pursue. I believe the other thing I wanted to share, and I don't want to just focus on numbers, because I could also focus on so many more of how this SRO program is going to improve and grow. But I do want to share is for the officer who was assigned, and I do want to be very, very clear, what I'm looking to do is to take an officer from within our department, because we have several qualified officers and several officers who've expressed interest in this. That position, that assignment will follow a school schedule from September through June. They will assume a utility role throughout the summer. So they'll have first dibs on vacation because we won't have to backfill their time through the Christmas season, through February, through April. Come summertime, when we're typically filling weeks of overtime, they will be assigned to offset those vacations. And I can tell you, historically, there's an officer who takes 3 weeks off through July, and it's second shifts, and it's all filled with overtime. Maybe there's some overlapping shifts here or there, but we incur an extensive amount of overtime through the summers. And this is all accounted for. And this is another way to alleviate that cost. So not only do we have the salary, we have the 33% New Hampshire retirement that we're paying. So I believe next year, in addition to those savings, if we were to have an officer up and running, I'm confident immediately there is probably a $6,000 to $9,000 savings in overtime and retirement benefits. I'm passionate about this. I want you to know that every time that I run my numbers and I look at the budget, and when I come to you, there's always, is it a want or is it a need? This is a need of the town. This benefits the town. This benefits our youth. This creates long-lasting relationships. It creates trust. Fiscally, it's the responsible thing to do. And as a department head, as a police officer, it's a great way to provide a service, to provide community relations, to mirror our mission statement and combine it with the goals and mission statement of the schools. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and I can really expand on this more. And I know it's getting late, but I'd ask for your support towards this warrant article. Please give me the opportunity to present it to the people. And I am scheduled to present to the school board on Wednesday night. I've had a lot of conversation with Superintendent Jetty, Dr. Jetty. I've spoken with the administrators in the school department at our emergency management meetings. I am asking for the school district on Wednesday to vote to support this. I will be in attendance Thursday night if you are so willing to allow this warrant article to move forward, to present this to the budget committee. Both presentations will be separate. Obviously, I'll spend more time on a fiscal component with the budget committee. But it is so important for the wellness of our children, for a safe environment, to foster relations, and to move forward, to get a full-time police officer, to have presence all the time in the high school, and start expanding our hours in the elementary and the middle school. and make sure we're working with all three schools, and hopefully we can expand that to our private schools in the south and north end of town too, because I don't want to forget them. And I want to have the resources to be able to involve them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any comments, questions, discussion?
I sat down with him already on this. He called me. I met. We went through the whole thing. The numbers was good.
Mhm.
Okay. It makes sense to have somebody in there more at the schools. And that includes the private and the public schools as well. All have the same problems, same issues. And with today's kids are getting more, as you hear in the news, the younger kids are getting anxious, I'd say is another word for it. They're having issues. But I think it's important to have a police officer in the schools more. I like the idea in which the vacation and the overtime, that's a big factor as well. That's how I feel. I'm all for it.
Thank you.
I'm fully supported this, and as the chief and I discussed today, I'm totally in support of it. But I want the SRO to be an integral part of the school. I don't want the SRO to sit in an office somewhere. I want the SRO, if possible, teaching a forensics class, or, there's all kinds of things. And if not, that being out visibly and forming those relationships that are really important. I would like to see chief or something at the end of to give us a report on the SRO and how they're being used and so forth. Because I'm totally convinced that, like the chief said, that it's very important, as important as any police officer in town, and they can have such a role. And from a personal standpoint, Heath Savage was our first SRO at Campbell, and I had the honor of interviewing Heath for that position. And my God, if we could hire another Heath, that would be a wonderful thing. Because not only was he an SRO, he was also coached basketball, like girls basketball, I think, or boys.
Yep.
And but I'm all for it, but I'm not going to be for it if he's going to sit in an office somewhere.
Based off what he said, what I see it, I understand what you're saying, and I agree. But he's already said when I talked to him, he wants this person to be involved.
I agree, and I'm totally congruent
That's what I'm hearing.
with what he said, and
The curriculum has to be reset.
Well, certainly in some of my notes here that I didn't highlight when we talk about creates positive interaction between the police, the school, including youth, parents, teachers. We talk about role model, mentorship, involvement in extracurricular activities, teaching, and coaching. This is all in my notes, and Mr. Lynch always makes fun of me for talking too much. I'm happy to keep going because I'm this passionate about this and its importance.
And I'm all for it.
And there are, not to get in, there are two schools of thoughts from my research that I've done, having never been a certified SRO. There are those school districts, and this is not ours, that want to know where their SRO. They want them in a centrally located area, that if they need them, they can go here, and that's where the officer is. There's the other type of school resource officer that is mobile, that is popping in between the gymnasium, a class, outside, inside, here, through a bus, at a sporting event, and that is the vision I have. I look to reshape this, and what's exciting is as we look into taking someone and assigning someone with a full-time position that's going to have very high expectations. And even higher now, as I'll be reporting back to the board, if this moves forward and the townspeople go for it, it would be great. And I also share with you too, there's a lot of pressure on me that people would like to see Heath Savage reappear in that position. And that speaks to the impact he had on parents' use. I mean, there are people who will still come to the police department and won't speak to me. They want to speak to Heath Savage because Heath Savage was their SRO. And I kid you not. And that's not a lie.
Do you know how many years he was?
I believe it was seven or eight. And he made a huge impression, and he taught the DARE program.
That's touching a lot of kids.
You're not kidding. And we're bringing that back, and somehow we'll make it work. If we can't, somehow we have to bring that program back.
And the other important thing too is to having the cop car sitting outside, right in front. The cops are here.
And everybody's going to say it.
That's important
It is.
from a visibility standpoint.
There are many great reasons for that. The presence of that vehicle being parked right out front. I agree.
That's peace of mind for the parents, for the teachers and the staff. Especially what we see on the news. The bullying is a big thing. I think you mentioned the anxiety children are having in school and out of school. Yeah, I think this is a good program.
Thank you, Dr. Queen.
I think it's a no-brainer. My only question would be, is there a way to have the schools maybe share in the future cost? Maybe not this year, but the future down the road.
That's another question. It's something we can't answer today.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, you get that.
I see where you're coming from, but
I support it.
Thank you, Mr. Leary.
Chief and I have spoken many times on this, and he knows he's got my support on it. Something we've been talking about for a couple of years, bringing back the DARE program
Yes, sir.
and helping out the youth.
Yep.
So do we have a motion to keep the full-time school resource police officer position?
I'll make a motion. We accept Article 7.
Motion by Mr. LaSalle's,
second.
second by Mr. Lynch. All those in favor, Mr. Leary.
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch.
All right.
Ms. Queenan.
I
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0-0.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. I appreciate it. I'm excited. I also want to thank the town administrator and Karen from the finance for helping me run numbers and thank you very much for your help and support. So appreciate it, folks.
Thanks for everything, Ben.
You betcha.
Appreciate it.
And I'm going to go home.
All right. Kids are already in bed.
Well, Troy, that was pretty good. I just watched this pop up. Troy Brown, Board of Selectmen, 5-0.
Good night, Ben. Be well.
Take care. Thank you, everyone.
For his next trick.
All right.
Okay, so we'll go back. The operating
Four.
budget, we don't need to vote on that this evening. We'll wait for the budget committee to take their final action. Human Services and Health Agencies. So, as I said, we met with our committee and we've gone through the requests from the agencies. It's the same amount recommended this year as last year. With a recommendation that we reach out and contact the Litchfield Women's Club and food pantry and see if we try to give a donation again. I call it donation, but it's a contribution to their efforts before we close our books. So
That'd be perfect.
yeah. And that worked out really well last year, working with the Women's Association. That what they do is they get leads on people that need help with oil or clothing, whatever, and they work directly with people in need just here in this town.
Yeah, that's the best part of it.
And obviously,
Right to our
our food
community.
pantry is there too. So
A no-brainer.
the full-time highway position, we've discussed this. So you're looking at, by bringing on a full-time employee in this department, the annual cost is going to be right around there, $85,000. It's 41,736 represents half that, say, because of we're starting the program in July. So I kind of jumped ahead. I'm sorry about that. I really actually need you to vote.
Vote on that. That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
say.
sorry. The budget committee is going to want to know if you voted on this Thursday night. or
Article
not.
5, Health and Human Services Agencies. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Leary,
Second.
second by Mr. Lynch. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500.
Troy, could you refresh me on this? With respect to welfare in town?
Yeah.
Do we have a welfare function here at Town Hall?
We do, yeah. So one of you don't see it in your operating budget anymore because about a year ago or 2 years ago, we created a general assistance fund, capital reserve fund, which we actually have not used a penny from yet. But anyhow, anyone in need, they can come into the town office, apply, and we'll review the application. And sometimes I'll make a decision to grant assistance. In some cases, I bring it to the Board of Selectmen.
But it goes through you.
They go through me. Yeah. Initially, they'll go through Donna. She'll take the application, make sure it's all complete. I'll make a review, make a decision. But I think that we here in Litchfield just have such a great network that people's needs are being provided for outside of the town. So we've been very, very fortunate in that area of the budget.
We can't forget those people too who are in need. Very important that we do what we can to help them.
Do everything we can.
Yeah, I've often wondered, are there people out there that are in desperate need that we don't know about,
Didn't we do something on LCTV? Didn't we have a slide going at one point? During the winter, we used to do heating. Then I thought we had another one giving out the information in prior years.
I believe we did, yeah.
I just wonder, the food pantry, do we know who uses the food pantry?
No.
It's kept
And
anonymous.
that's
by design.
purposefully.
Yes.
I wonder if we could make a poster or something and put there that if you need other assistance with Troy's number or whatever.
Selectmen's
The
number.
Women's Club used to be heavily involved in that, and they would get tips from like teachers in the classroom.
Yeah.
So and so doesn't have mittens, or
Yeah.
they can't afford this, or they can't afford that, and they used to do really a great job in town with that, and that's why we started that fund.
Yeah, because they,
were gonna
you know,
involve.
They stopped with the scholarship fund, but they're still doing the,
Well, they were going
the
to stop
need.
everything because certain other groups like PTO were taking over their fundraisers, and that's why we decided to establish a fund so that they could keep going.
So we could help finance them.
There is a reduced lunch.
All
list.
lunch is free right now.
Our lunch is free right now.
Has been for last year and this year.
For all students?
All students.
They still charge me.
You're not a student. Besides, you probably eat too much.
I'm glad I'm
Breakfast
sitting
and lunch are
between you
both
two.
at no cost.
Let me at it.
But the caveat is you have to take the whole lunch. You can't nitpick.
It's not a la carte.
They still have people. I didn't know that it was.
Yep.
So I know they go down for breakfast.
It's great.
We're just gonna start getting the kid to go for them.
Things are changing so much. We used to bring it back to school.
We actually used to walk down to the cafeteria underneath
The old school.
the second floor at the 30s building.
Yep.
Get your tray of food and walk it back to your classroom and eat.
Uphill both ways.
Well, there's a set of stairs.
And the nurse's office was in there, and the principal's office was in there, and it's not a big area.
The sixth grade was down back.
And sixth grade was down and back. Seventh and eighth were up top.
So Article 6, were you done presenting or do you have a little bit more?
for the full-time highway position.
Yes.
I'm done presenting. If the board wants to take action on it.
I make a motion.
Article,
Go ahead.
I was just say Article 6, full-time highway position. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We go with,
Motion by Mr. Lynch,
go with it.
I'll second.
second by Ms. Ms. Queenan.
Long night.
All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500. Bobby, you start translating for him.
Okay, so the next one would be the part-time clerk position, which the board actually did approve on November the 8th.
Would you like us to do it again?
Yeah, just do it again. Just it's all
Okay,
in
Article
one
8,
set of minutes.
part-time clerk position. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Larry,
Second.
second by Mr. Lynch. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
I'm going to abstain from this one. And it
Okay.
has nothing to do with.
Yeah.
But I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 401.
You can abstain. It's a judgment-free zone, Rich.
Okay.
Article 10, road improvements.
Okay, so your next few articles here, remember we talked about the tax cap issue. So the road improvements, I'm just thinking that the board at this year, it's in the capital improvements plan that we really wanted to get back to funding the additional 200,000. Over the past few years, we have been able to fund over 400,000 through taxation and other funding sources. But with the fire truck, question, and the fact that maybe the ARPA funds is going to be a good use of maybe doing some infrastructure paving, that this year we could hold off on the road improvements question and focus more on if the board wants to talk about the fire engine and all the other equipment that we've listed in the CIP for we had the fire truck tanker and we have the plow trucks and the backhoe. All of those have a tax impact. And I'm thinking that really the board should have a discussion about the fire engine, whether or not you're going to support a fire engine, and let that be the question, and let that be the tax impact question. Then you get down to your capital reserve funds where we've identified where we'd like to, top off those funds, get them back to a funding level where they should be using the unassigned fund balance.
Thoughts?
Let's go through them.
So up until this point, everything's under the tax
Everything
cap.
was under the
Yeah.
tax cap.
Right there, that's
Yeah,
what
so
we
if we
have.
took road improvements out, we could use the ARPA funds. if we
Right,
chose
I
to.
We
agree
hope,
with that.
yeah.
We hope,
We hope.
we hope. It seems like highway has been one of the things they say will be approved.
And I look at if the ARPA funds could be used for road improvements, and if we could go out and do $600,000 worth of paving and use money elsewhere or do 800,000. I mean, that would catch your road program up so much and take pressure off your operating budget. Because otherwise, we all know that the $200,000 warrant article disappeared when we did the fire station bond.
Yes.
We've not been able to bring it back, but we have not lost progress because we had other funding sources. The state provided us with more road money. We received funds from other sources. So we've actually made progress, but not had to tax the people for the additional 200,000.
So in the thought process we have right now, Articles 12, Article 13, Article 14, Article 15, Article 16, all fall off.
So with respect to ARPA funds, would that be under infrastructure?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that under the infrastructure category or lost revenue, lost revenue would be actually the proper category. Because the infrastructure is water, sewer, and broadband. So I'm sorry, it'd be lost revenue. which is the one that category that is least restrictive.
And how that revenue is lost by us not agreeing to put it on. That could be a little.
We have the
check off
we
on
have the
form.
calculation that we can show that we had the lost revenue, then is supposed to be able to use ARPA funds with less restrictions.
Oh, boy.
I worry about digging into those funds right away until we get something in black and white from them that says it's okay. That worries me.
Mhm.
Because
We still
we
have
have a
one.
letter that says we got to pay this money back because it wasn't used properly. And we thought it was.
So what we getting from the highway block grant this year? Was it 250?
So we have 200 from highway block.
I thought
grant
it was
this year.
higher than
That's what we're
200.
budgeting.
The budget, okay. I thought speculation was it was going to
Well,
be higher.
we lowered it to 190 last year and it ended up being 200.
Okay.
So in the 2022 budget, we've adjusted it to 200,000.
Okay.
And then, of course, you're always collecting impact fees. We've been able to utilize impact fees.
Yeah, but you got nothing going on.
Yeah, right now.
You don't have much going on for impact fee collection.
No, we don't. No.
Karen, you mentioned that 4% figure, the lost revenue. Do we have that in writing somewhere?
I have my calculation on my spreadsheet for it. And, oh yeah, because
The fact
this
that-
came from New Hampshire GFOA, which is the Government Finance Association. They sent everybody that spreadsheet to have you do your lost revenue
So
calculation.
claim 4% lost revenue. You don't have to justify that.
Well, under the lost revenue, they're still coming out with the final rule on what you can spend it on. It's not just loosey goosey.
But the figure
Oh, yeah.
of 4%
Yeah, that's a
for
definite.
lost revenue.
Yeah, that's a definite.
You don't have to justify that at all.
Justify it by,
The 4%.
Well, as long as we have the
as
calculation.
long as I have the calculation to show what we brought in revenue in 18, 19, 20. Or 17,
Robert,
18.
this gets back to your question.
Yep.
The 4% figure. Oh, well. My grandchildren are going to have to pay for that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
My concern is we really don't have any details from the group exactly yet.
Well, that's the ARPA fund. So I guess, if you're sitting here, I think this is a big picture question is, do you want to ask the citizens to raise and appropriate $200,000 for road paving? It's got a tax impact. And then, you're going to have a discussion about the fire truck, and then you're going to ask them to raise and appropriate the first year's, lease payment for the fire truck. And the big picture is, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't know where this board lies with the fire truck, and maybe you should try to talk about the fire truck first. Because that's one of the, the big questions is, what are you going to do with the fire truck? So the fire department has gone, they provided me with information.
They did.
The finance is a 7-year lease, which, I think we had the presentation at the last meeting. That payment would be $108,691 based on our, estimates today. And we pay that amount for 7 years.
Well, I think that the road question probably stands the best chance of any of the others to get passed by the voters, because they always seem to vote for the roads. I do think it's time that the voters get to weigh in on a fire truck. We
Maybe
said no for
one.
2 years.
Yeah.
One, but not two. Yes, correct. Whether or not we support it or not, I think that it should be up to the voters.
Well, we have to support it to get it onto the warrant, right?
Can we support it under the fact that we want the voters to make the decision? We may not always agree with it. Okay, but
Well, I guess sitting here as a board, we have to do what we feel is in the right interest of the community. Then we each have our own individual vote when we walk into the booth. So the bigger question that I always put myself in front of, what is right for the individuals that elected us?
That's what I
Right.
said.
Then when we walk inside, that's when we get to say what is good for the Rosales household, the Lynch household, the Leary, the Weber, the Queenan. What's good for our household. I sit here and I just know that we have a present fire chief. We have two past fire chiefs all say that we need this. These are the people that are the experts of it and have brought it forth. 2 years in a row, we've pushed the can down the road due to revenue issues. But I think we're to the point now, the fleet is aging. We've pushed it as a town as far as we can. I think we have to just let the voter decide what they want.
And did I remember this right, that the newest fire truck is 20 years old?
Yep.
So that to me right there, I mean, if the newest is 20 years old.
Okay, with all the hydrants put in right now, you don't need much of a tanker.
Well, I understand that
No,
part.
no, the tanker part is what I'm thinking.
And that's why, in the whole thing, when the capital improvement was done, they put two in because they didn't know how this first truck was going to react. So they kept the tanker there, but speculation was the tanker was always going to drop off the CIP.
You're talking about Article 11 and 12? That
Number 12 would drop.
12 would drop.
It would
Yeah.
probably also vanish from the CIP also.
I was going to say, you don't want to give them a heart attack.
No.
Two of those show up. $760,000 each.
But we're at that point that fleet is just getting old and it's going to be one after another after another. Believe me, I don't like the financial impact either. But I think it's a real need of the community.
Mutual aid wise, you can bring in a tanker. The only area in town that we do not have hydrants is Mr. Larry's area. And most of the town has got expensive hydrants in them. Going all the way down the south end of town, we do have it as it crosses across the road down there to the old folks' homes.
Mhm.
But we don't have it from, let's say, Wilson's Farms all the way to Redonis' old farm. There's nothing in there. Page
Nothing at my house.
Page has nothing until you get up to Albuquerque. Talent has it all the way. Part of Litchfield, where Talent Road is, has it. The rest of the town's got it. 85%, or 90% of the town has plugs. So the engine is me, because you can carry the hose, hit a hydrant and go.
Mhm.
If you got something that's going to be in a non-hydrant area, these engines have tanks on them too.
Yeah, in my mind, there's no way I can justify spending $500,000 on fire hydrants and then buy a new tanker. That just doesn't compute with me. Now that a fire truck, that's a different story.
That's correct.
Fully agree.
I'm very concerned about the fact that our newest one is 20 years old,
And based on everything you just said, Rich, that's why Article 12 will drop and not be seen. They've always sat
That's what I
before us,
said.
and the new engine actually is going to carry more water than the present engines do.
You
And
know-
on top of it, we have
you
all the
know that?
hydrants everywhere. I believe that's what they said that evening.
I couldn't remember. Okay, that's what I was thinking back.
Yeah.
Well, if you have that, drop 12 right off the bat.
Well, if we do the road and we do the fire engine, is that going to put us over the tax cap?
Yeah, both will.
Both will.
Both or either?
Both will. You're
Whoa,
so
whoa,
that,
whoa,
that
whoa,
last
whoa.
one, as you're going kind of down through the warrant, the town clerk,
That puts us within
that
a
one
grand.
keeps you
said.
under the tax cap by
So then
$2,000.
from there, it's,
Yeah.
From there, you're over the tax cap.
So no matter what we put up after that, the budget committee is not going to be able to approve legally.
So let's go back to we got an old truck. We also got we got another highway department's looking for trucks. They got 1, 2, 3.
I'm sitting here saying they've gotten so many plow trucks lately
Well,
that we can just drop them off.
and also I did talk to Kevin a while back and he said he'd rather see the money go into some of the roads that need repair. And he's got a whole list of roads that he thinks needs repair.
Yeah, he does. And he also, the backhoe, I talked to him about that, and that's the one that they need more because it's used between the two
Two of them.
facilities, okay? And that one's having some trouble.
It's not that old.
The other problem is it's probably worth more now than what you can buy one for. If you want to try to buy a backhoe.
If it's raising 123,000, that's the cost of a new one.
Yeah, I know.
What would they get for trade for the old one?
That we gotta find out. It's pretty well worn. I looked at it the last week.
You gotta remember, all these other things are on here just because of the CIP. If we tried following the CIP.
Okay. If we don't do the roads this year, we happen to be lucky to get APA,
Mhm.
then we'll be all set. Put in one truck. Okay. And we get the backhoe.
I don't think you can. I think
Can't,
that's
we're gonna be- then-
way over.
So what's happening, it's gonna be bad enough that the budget committee is gonna have to not approve either all the positions and then approve a truck, but they're gonna have to select which ones they think is more important. But some articles are not gonna be supported
Yeah, I know.
by the budget committee.
I'm just trying to get the balance of this, looking at this. That's why.
I think you should try to keep it as simple as possible. I think I think you need to ask the question for the fire engine. I think we've done a lot of work with roads in the past few years. Our roads are in good shape. I think the highway department's had a lot of activity with equipment, and I think you take all that highway equipment off for this year, reevaluate next year. Keep the warrant as light as possible.
So based upon that, you would support Article 12, right?
11.
11.
Oh, I'm sorry, 11.
Yeah,
I would remove road and Article 10, keep Article 11. I mean, things gonna be renumbered. Remove Article 12, remove Article 13, remove Article 14, 15, 16. I would keep 17. I would keep 18, keep 19, 20. I'd like to talk about 21 later.
What's wrong with your teeth?
Well, all the other ones are good because there's
Yeah.
no tax
And the
impact.
conservation fund cap and the farmlands. The health and dental care expendable trust fund, Article 21. This was, we had drafted this last year. It was to cover those unanticipated costs when employees change health plans. We hire new employees and they come in at a higher cost or whatever for health insurance. And this ties back to the memorandum of understanding that we have with the library trustees that we would cover these costs. So I don't know. I'm just looking at, the experience that I've had on the town side. I haven't really seen, we've always seemed to be able to make adjustments within our budget. I know the library's got a smaller budget. And that's really what's driving this, but
We also discussed ending that agreement for all new employees with the library last year when we discussed.
we did.
Yeah,
Let them
I-
stand on their own.
I just think that Article 21, there's more work to be done between the Board of Selectmen and the library
Right.
trustees
So
before
maybe
we go and ask the citizens to create this
Push it
fund.
down the road another year.
Maybe the MOU, it could be revised. That if we're willing to commit that we'll pay for half the cost, or it's just something else. Just have an open dialogue with the library trustees and revisit it. When the agreement was made, from my understanding, the benefits that were offered to the library employees were different than today. I think Article 21 just opens up a debate on the floor of deliberative session that we don't need.
Especially if we don't have all the answers.
Well, that's it. You know, I think we have more work to do with the library trustees face to face.
Okay,
So,
so take it out.
so in order to get through this in a reasonable way, you take out Article 12, take out 13. I'm a little hesitant about that one. I know that backhoe needs help.
You're
Take-
also taking 10 out.
Correct, 10,
Yep,
10, 12, 13, 14,
14,
15,
16,
yeah,
That's in 21.
21.
16, 21.
Okay.
That's gonna put us over the tax cap anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's either you don't fund, you say no to these three budget committee, but yes to this one, or yes to these, no to this one. You know, and I don't like giving them something that's gonna put us over the tap. We've always done our due diligence, making sure that we did all the heavy lifting for them. You know, not that they had to go and get our budget there. I just think this, after pushing this down the road for 2 years, we gotta let
So
them,
we get the truck or over the tax cap.
Correct.
With you.
Yeah,
Or
but it's called copy.
you don't fund 4 positions,
So we can change it,
right?
make it a date.
You gotta make up $108,000 somewhere.
So either the road or the fire truck would put us over. We're good through number 8, and then everything else is over.
So what's the possibility of using ARPA funds for the fire truck?
That's the one area that I'd be probably more concerned about,
Then the
that the
road-
federal government comes back and says, I don't think this was an appropriate use of the funds.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Am
I'd
I-
rather use it for the road than.
I mean, I think loss of revenue, my basic understanding is loss of revenue means, you know, there are things that you do on an annual basis that you put off. And we do pave roads on an annual basis. We don't buy fire trucks on an annual basis.
And the other part about road improvements, if we get direction the first quarter of next year, there's still time to do more road improvements if we choose to. It all comes down to when do we get direction on how to use the funds.
How about the Health and Human Services? Could that be used for ARPA funds?
That gets
Is
that gets
tricky?
complicated
Yeah.
because those agencies are receiving ARPA fund, not ARPA funds. I mean, and you can't, you know,
Can't
start
blend it
mixing
up.
them. And
Okay.
So we're over by 100 and what?
Depending on how you put it up, we're probably gonna be over by, we were 2,000
you're going to be over what 100
by 106.
106,000. It's the fire truck that's going to put you over. So if I did, I don't know if it helps you, I can eliminate Article 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do that.
And then
12 all the way down.
Did you take 9 out too?
Pile truck. What's that?
You took 9 out also?
Pile truck lease.
9's gone.
7,
You
8.
have 9?
No, 9 is
9?
missing.
What was 9?
Oh, is 9 missing?
That's after
They
the
numbered
clerk.
wrong.
So that,
I don't know if you're deleted
That
it by
would have been
mistake.
the SRO.
6.
Nope, that was above
Oh,
it.
yeah, I don't think you numbered the.
Town clerk, what was 9?
did we miss 9?
There's no 9.
Did it get cut by accident?
It's gone.
No, my copy goes from.
What'd you
Well,
do
do
with
I
it,
have the
Troy?
hard copy? I don't know if I do.
And
No, 9 is,
Oh, there you go. Fire truck lease. Well, now it's fire truck lease.
Yeah, now he's changing all of them on the fly.
I know, he's messing with us.
13.
I wonder what the little red man's running around screaming.
14.
Where's the line?
15. 16. 16.
One's election, 2 zoning, 3 zoning, 4 operating,
16's farm
5
Kessel.
human, 6 full-time,
6,
7
5,
full-time,
4.
8 full-time, 9, 10, 11, 12,
I'll refresh this.
13, 14, 15.
See what
I got
happens
16.
here. All right.
We'll
So,
look at the operating budget.
so right now you have Article 4 be the operating budget. Article
Subject to
5
change,
would
right?
be health services and health agencies. $21,255. Article 6 would be the full-time highway position at $41,736. Article 7 is the full-time school resource police officer, $0. Article 8, the part-time clerk position, $9,144. Article 9 would be the fire truck lease purchase, $108,691. Article 10 would be property revaluation expendable trust fund. That would be putting $25,000 into the fund using the unassigned fund balance. So there would be no new taxation impact. Article 11 would be the technology and communication expendable trust fund. We'd be putting $12,000 into the fund using the unassigned fund balance. This would get us a balance of $50,000. Article 12 would be the fire vehicle and equipment repair expendable trust fund, putting $25,000 into the fund using the unassigned fund balance. This would establish the fund balance at $75,000. So we know we have an aging fleet.
Mhm.
We're trying to purchase a fire engine this year. I don't know when you're going to purchase your next fire engine, and your fleet's getting older and older. So this is why I'm trying to get that fund, increase the monies available in the fund. The same story for Public Works Expendable Trust Fund, trying to put $80,000 into the fund from the unassigned fund balance. This would establish a $75,000. I'm sorry, that's wrong. I'm going to update my notes. That would get it up to $100,000. Because you can, out of this fund, we can purchase replacement vehicles. So if a vehicle blows up or whatever, we can try to replace it. We could buy a used vehicle. Health and dental expendable trust fund. I think we are in agreement.
We're going to get rid of that one,
that
right?
that's going to go.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to mess my numbering up.
No, next one's 14 now.
So the conservation fund cap, changing that from the 1 million to the 2.5 million. That would be Article 14. And then Article 15 would be the farmland capital reserve fund, taking $35,408.71 that Karen captured when we exceeded the $1 million cap in the conservation fund, and putting that in the farmland capital reserve fund. So if everyone is good with all of that, I guess you could just take one blanket vote, and then the one article that we already voted on with the you abstain would be good. If you're comfortable.
That was the clerk position.
I don't know. I guess in concept we just went through this. Now I think you go back.
I think we'll
The
back
ones you
and
haven't
do one
voted
by
on,
one.
vote on them individually. Yeah, that's fair.
We voted.
Yeah, we'll start at 9.
Yeah.
We already did some work before then. All right, Article 9, fire truck lease purchase. Do we have a motion to accept Article 9?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. LaSalle's,
Thanks, Rich.
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Larry. Any further discussion?
I told the chief it was time to put it on the ballot, whether I support it or not. So let the people vote.
Fully agree. All those in favor, Mr. Larry?
I support it being on the ballot.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Right.
Mr. Lynch?
I support it, that it needs to be on the ballot for the people to help decide.
Same, I vote that the people need to decide.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500.
How you do?
Article 10, the Property Revaluation Expendable Trust Fund. Do we have a motion
Put
to
an
accept?
asterisk next to that last one, Troy.
I'm going to put a note. You can actually witness this on YouTube.
Okay, Article 10, Property Revaluation Expendable Trust Fund. Do we have a motion to accept Article 10?
You know I don't like these people.
Somebody help me.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. LaSalle's,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Queenan. All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
No.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
You got to,
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion passes 4-1-0.
This is not one that I want.
Article 11, Technology and Communication Expendable Trust Fund. Do we have a motion to accept Article 11?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Larry,
Second.
second by Ms. Queenan. All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0-0. The Fire Vehicle and Equipment Repair Expendable Trust Fund, Article 12. Do we have a motion to accept Article 12?
Can we drop that this year? And the reason why I'm thinking that, we need, because we're over the tax cap.
There's no impact.
Oh, it's 25,000. We didn't have to spend it. Okay.
I do have a question on it, but I think it's in the discussion period.
So do we have a motion to accept Article 12?
Yes, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Larry,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Queenan. Further discussion?
Yeah, they carry a line in their budget for
Repairs.
maintenance and repairs already. So is this redundant?
They do, but that line is supposed to be the annual just cost of maintaining vehicles. This is-
Routine maintenance.
Yeah, routine maintenance. This is, those catastrophic type things, primarily pump failures, transmissions, major repairs.
You realize that the full 25,000 will put us over the goal.
Ooh, good call. Good catch.
That's what I was saying.
Well, I'm rounding. The current balance is 51,000.
So they already got 38,000 in the balance now. We want to bring it up to where we have to establish a 50.
No, wait.
Well, they have 51.
They have 51 right now.
Goal is,
Article
Go
12.
go down, one
Wait.
down.
okay, I'm on the wrong side of
Yeah,
it.
you gotta go below it.
I'm on the wrong side. I read down.
They have 51,000. They're trying to get 75,000 in their fund.
We'll be looking at the budget again.
I was being a wise ass on that balance. It doesn't matter.
I looked this year, I took a look at our capital reserve funds and knowing, the different status of different departments, I just looked at this year as an opportunity to try to use some of the unassigned fund balance to cap off some of these funds.
And you looked at it. What did you come up with?
Well, that's why I'm having
Recommendation.
a recommendation to
Your
establish higher levels of
Come on,
funding
Kevin.
these
Well,
CRFs.
w-
So in other
I
words,
look
the
at
fire
this-
vehicle and equipment
never
repair
mind.
expendable trust fund, when, trying to establish a balance of $75,000.
let's see, maybe I'm old school. If you have that much money in there now and we got other budget issues that we're going to have to deal with, why are we trying to fulfill it this year?
What would you like to use this money for instead?
We use it to,
Health and Human Services, maybe?
yeah, and tax caps.
What if we had one of our aging trucks fail, catastrophic failure, and then we need to do something?
I mean, this is an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're just moving money from one pocket to
Yeah.
the other, right?
Correct.
So
I'm just thinking out the box.
typically, but typically the past practice of the board has been, there's no right or wrong, but the past practice has been when we use the unassigned fund balance, we try to accomplish a one-time capital purchase, or we try to establish capital reserve funds or replenish the funds.
Okay.
Whereas health and human agencies, that's funding to help help support their annual operation. And if the return is obviously services that the residents can access. But I think the greater return is investing in our own capital and our capital reserve funds.
Go ahead. I'm done.
I'll make a motion. We accept Article 12.
Okay, I think we already had a motion. and a
Oh, we
second.
did? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, no worries. All those in favor, Mr. Larry,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch.
I'm gonna hold on this one. Money, I'm thinking we're dealing with other factors in the budget. Do we have to keep this up this year? That's how I feel about it.
So you're an egg,
Nay.
Ms. Queenie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 410. Article 13, Public Works Expendable Trust Fund. Do we have a motion to accept Article 13?
There's another one.
What do we use this for?
So this fund, it's actually can be used to cover overages at the solid waste facility for, C&D and just solid waste in general. So if we exceed that, we can use this capital reserve fund. We can use it to cover the contractors in salt if there's overages.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, and
Can
and
we
I
use
think
it if the backhoe blows up?
and you can use it if the backhoe blows up. And there is language that says, and to repair and replace vehicles. So if you get yourself in a situation where, say that 1999 International Orange plow truck just blows up, you're not going to repair it. Then, one of the things Kevin and I talked about is that maybe we could start communicating with some of the towns around us and get our hands on a good used plow truck that's still got half its life expectancy left. A lot of towns are lease purchasing these brand new plow trucks, and after 8 years, they turn them in.
Yep.
And then they lease another 8 years. Well, those trucks are still, they're municipal trucks, well maintained. For what we do, we can run that truck for another 12 years probably.
Some people
Right.
lease fire trucks too.
Well, that was what I suggested before. And I know that Londonderry does it.
Yep.
And they turn them over after like 5 years or something.
5 to
like
8
that.
years,
Yeah.
something
The
like
fire trucks.
Yeah.
Fire trucks, yeah.
Yeah.
But that kind of fell on some deaf ears. I'm not gonna point fingers.
Yeah, I was curious about that because you suggested that.
Yeah, the mechanic spoke to it. What was it, Corey? I think it's the mechanic.
I know who he is.
He spoke to it that evening.
Anyways, are we voting on this?
I asked if we had a motion to accept Article 13.
Can I just ask one question? If
Of
it's
course.
a want or a need in this case? You're saying it's insurance for the backhoe.
Well, not that.
Not just the
It could be
backhoe.
salt overage. All of a
just-
sudden, we have a real, they have a winter that's pretty bad, and we need a lot more salt. We can dip back into
And the
this, take care.
contractors. So
And the
if
contractors,
you
so
have a
people put it down.
really, really bad year, and like this year with the
We have-
salt,
Okay.
price.
So it's a
We
need.
had 2015 with record snowfalls.
It just, while I'm thinking about it, how are we sitting for manpower as far as plow contract?
Kevin's doing
Good.
He's
Right.
very, very
He's all
confident. He's
set.
you got a lot of the drivers back from last year, and he's picked up some newer ones. And we've got two of these
Got one of those
mid-sized
high
plow
storms.
trucks that we've been able to purchase, and like these last couple storms, where there was only like an inch and a half on the road they had to plow. What a difference! Just because usually you're going down there with pickup truck plow, and you're only opening up the middle of the road. The plows worked really slick. Those wing plows,
Yep.
worked really good.
I was just thinking about the manpower crisis that a lot of.
Yeah, for right now we're
Good.
we're good. But I know surrounding towns, you see them advertising, the state's advertising.
State's
big.
hurting too.
Yeah.
People like working for us. I don't know why.
I know they have a serious problem in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Okay, make a motion that we extend this, please.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Leary. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Article 13 passes 500.
Somebody should have voted no because Troy was
You're gonna
gonna
mess
win
up my
5-0
cut.
because he erased it and put 0. in it.
Chairman Weber's moving too slowly.
I can't get motions.
I'm pacing this.
Article 14, the Conservation Fund Cap Amendment. Do we have a motion to accept Article 14?
Make a motion, we accept it.
Motion by Mr. Lynch,
Second.
second by Mr. LaSalle's. Do we have further discussion?
I think it's too high. 2.5, I think is too high.
When the conservation met, we went through this whole thing. The other one it was a little higher before, they brought it down. And it's now established was in 2014. Due to the land cost pricing and stuff like that, we're trying to bring it up. This comes from impact fees and stuff like that, if I recall.
It's the land use change tax.
Land use change tax, right?
Your big thing next will be the horse farm if that goes through, because that's all in current use.
Mm-hmm. We'll gain that out of that.
I have to admit that, whatever the level is, but the $1 million threshold, I think in today's, I think that when they set $1 million cap way back
okay.
when,
They thought they
they're
were
like,
gonna get there.
never going to hit it. I think we're easily going to hit $1 million. Every time land comes out, we're collecting, $20,000, and the cost to purchase land is
Horrendous.
yeah. And you can see that, then you have to have this administrative article every time you exceed the cap. So Karen's got to go and account for it, put it in a holding fund. We got to come back, ask the question.
How did we come up with 2.5?
Conservation Commission made the vote and suggested that.
And I think we're looking at a different conservation commission now. You
We are.
people
It's
that
much
are
different.
actively out there looking at acquiring land, just not sitting, not doing anything. So they're very active.
I'd be more comfortable with 2 million. That's just me.
This expression.
What was the reasoning for 2.5?
They felt that the cost of land and everything else available, and we've already got into this looking at some land, the numbers were high. Okay? And we still want to purchase land, and they want to keep things going as more open space and farm and stuff like that. The whole idea, they want to keep the town not built up. So this is what it's all about.
My hope is that we never even get close to that because they're purchasing as they're getting revenue coming in.
Yeah. And, I've had discussions too about you don't want to cap so low, and I'm not saying $1 million is low,
That's
but
right.
you don't want, and what's happened this year, you don't want to put a board, committee, or commission in a position where they feel like, well, now we need to spend money because we're going to hit the cap. And that's too bad, because if you've got your eye on a certain piece of land and you think it's going to go for $1.7 million, but now you start expending funds because you're going to exceed the cap.
Yep.
That's kind of wasteful too.
And that was
So
the purpose of this.
I can see it's, $2 million, $2.5 million cap. It allows the commission to have their eye on certain parcels and be saving the money for those that they feel are going to come up. I mean, you got Wilson's Farm. People are kind of a little nervous about that. You get some other farmland, and if those lands come up for sale, it's going to cost some money.
It'll be a lot more than $2.5 million.
Yeah, this is just going to be your little down payment until you figure out, how you're going to get more federal funds and more tax money.
Well, conservative grants and stuff like that.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So there's towns that will, if you can work with a landowner, sometimes they'll allow you to put down a deposit and then you pursue other funding sources.
It's like the Crossville to school. Conservative owns all they'll farm there.
I guess they did have, Kevin, they had a discussion about removing the cap.
Yeah, there was the.
And they felt that was the wrong thing to ask the citizens because obviously the citizens felt there was a need to have a cap. So that's, they did decide to keep the cap in place. I don't know why it's 2.5 million.
It's just a number. It's all it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
You all right?
Make a
I'll-
motion.
Didn't we already have a motion a second?
Yeah, we did.
I thought we did.
Yeah, Kevin and Kim, I think.
Can I?
Didn't
I thought so. All right, let's do it
Play
again.
it back.
Do you have a motion to accept Article 14, the Conservation Fund Cap Amendment?
I make a motion. Yes.
I'll
We have a
second
motion
it.
by Mr. Lynch. We have a second by Ms. Queen.
I was thinking something else. Look.
All those in favor, Mr. Larry?
Reluctant eye.
Okay.
Mr. LaSalle's? Aye. Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next is Article 15, Farmland Capital Reserve Fund. Do we have a motion to accept Article 15?
I'd make a motion. We accept Article 15.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch.
Come on, guys.
What is this? What's that last sentence about $1 million? It says in 2021, but not transferred to the conservation fund.
Now, would you copy and paste?
The sum is to come from the land use change tax.
Oh,
fund as
yeah.
previously Established.
I want to make sure I understand.
So what happened was.
Oh, that's the money that was
That was
extra.
over.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So we had a motion by Mr. Lynch,
I'll second.
second by Ms.
So
Queen.
this is just another conservation fund.
Farmland Capital Reserve Grant. Yep.
Why is it different? Shouldn't it be all in the same fund?
Conservation and farmland.
These ones
could
the
be-
trustees hold.
What trustees?
The trustees of the trust fund. That the trustees hold some of the funds.
What trustees?
The town's trustees.
The
John
town's trustees?
John Poulos.
Mike
It's a
Fallon,
trust.
Yeah.
Trustees of the trust fund.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust fund?
it's actually an elected office, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I have no idea who they
So this
are.
fund's already established. They just want to add that extra money into it.
We didn't get to meet them.
Well, that's why they're elected.
Okay.
I think Steve Calloway used to
Who's going to second it?
too.
Who's made the
Oh, he
motion?
did.
I have Steve
Steve Keller
Calloway.
used to be.
I made the motion.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Lynch,
I'll second.
second by Mr. LaSalle's. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Larry?
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's?
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we're done.
Done with that one.
That's painful.
So this is
Public Works.
this is what they call current use.
Yeah, so one of those that you signed tonight, 80% of that will go into conservation once it's paid. That land
Very
use
good.
change tax you signed tonight.
Okay. Next meeting,
Next meeting, either December 20th or 27th.
27. Good day.
I have no preference. It's up to you guys.
Well, I have a question.
But the
So
27th.
the year
The
off.
planning board meets the 21st, and if we're doing warrant articles for maybe
Let's go over
sidewalks.
the 20th. Take a
We'll do
week
the
off.
20th. The
If we
next
do a
one.
week from tonight,
Yeah.
it'd be a quick meeting and then we'd be done for the year.
That's right.
I say quick.
Then we
but
don't come back to the 10th of January.
And then the 10th of January.
We still have warrant article. We can still,
We'll do all
Work on
that.
this.
We'll do all that on the 20th.
Planning board.
but the planning board meets the 21st.
So we can't then. Unless we have a special meeting.
In
after
case,
that.
in case the sidewalk issue or the,
Yeah.
what's the other one? Warehouse sizes.
Oh,
So the
Well, the warrant, but the budget committee they're concerned about the money articles.
Okay, but we can still, we can still
Planning board
add this
articles, they
later.
don't.
Okay, all right, as long as there's no
So
problem with.
the,
Do we have to vote on the planning board?
We do.
So therefore, their meeting's the 21st. We can't meet on the 20th unless we have a special meeting after
But no,
that.
we're going to be meeting again in January.
Okay,
Oh, okay, it's right
So-
before. We have set the
we're good.
20th. Okay,
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
Just wanted to make
January
sure.
10th, so we can do that.
so the meeting on December 20th, you think would be a quick meeting?
So any feedback that we have from budget committee Thursday night, because we don't know, what kind of feedback we're going to get. So we discussed that. Karen and I will bring in final, estimate on the end of year-end budget and ask you to approve encumbrances. I think that's all I've got. Top of my head.
Put that in the calendar.
Well, I was just going to suggest we do it tonight.
Well, I don't.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh. He knows I take
Well
everything.
said.
Get it out of the way.
Well said.
Oh, God.
It's going to be quick. I mean, it's almost 10 o'clock.
It's tough.
All right, we had no other business added. Next, we have the town administrator report. Mr. Brown.
10 words
I'm
of
all
us.
over the place. I'm tired.
20th.
Next meeting day. Certified public. All right. Oh, so I received an email today. The state forest logging operation is done. So if you've driven by there, I've not seen it, but the parking lot is constructed, the gate's up, no more logging operation going on. So
Looks pretty.
I just, I thought I recalled that this logging operation was going to be going on all winter. So I guess that was good news.
Only during
It
hunting
said maybe
season.
into the spring.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, we already got
So
that
if things
solved.
stopped or what?
Mhm.
And then the holiday hours just will be closing the town office at 1:00 on December the 23rd. So we'll be having a Christmas party. Selectmen been invited. You're more than welcome to come. We'll get the word out to the residents and everything. We covered the shooting
Earlier.
thing
yeah.
earlier. So that's it. That's all I have.
Perfect. Selectman report, Ms. Queenan.
I will repeat what we did last week. Planning Board will continue to work on their land use laws and permitted uses in the current regions. We're working on warrant articles for potential sidewalk in the northern commercial industrial district, and we might have a warrant article on business warehouse sizing in all commercial districts.
Okay, thank you. Emergency management team still is not meeting, which is a good thing. Recreation Commission has a meeting tomorrow evening. School facility improvement, I missed the last meeting due to a work conflict. And the Capital Improvement Committee is not meeting until January. Mr. Leary.
Budget committee. We'll meet Thursday night and I'll catch all the daggers and the arrows and
That's why we send the big ones.
yeah, I'll be ready for a cocktail on Friday. And just a couple of items. This has to do mostly with the Veterans Committee in town. They finished their raffle. And what was the gentleman's name, Rich, that won? I keep getting his name wrong.
Dick, Di, and now you asked.
They
me.
live over on
Rocky Hill.
Rocky Hill, right? He was a disabled
Oh,
vet that won the first
Fantastic.
prize.
Something.
Horrock, yeah. Yep. And they were very happy. I mean, gosh, it was like Christmas. It was unbelievable. Rich and myself and Mary Sapiric went over and brought the helmet over to him. And so they did very well on that. Also, got approval from the cemetery trustees to do veterans, flagpoles in the cemeteries, which is going to be really nice. It'll be a nice addition. And the other flags should be coming down off the poles if they
They're all
haven't
done.
already come down.
They
did
already
them
did.
today.
Perfect.
Yep, they were doing them today.
Took a beating.
Yeah, some of them did. Yeah, but
A couple were
they're
snapped.
a good group and they're doing a lot of nice work in town.
They're doing fantastic work for the community.
Yep.
Mr. Lynch.
I have nothing to say. We didn't have another meeting, so the last one.
Robert, Purple Heart. was-
Oh yeah, Troy says we have the signs for the Purple
Signs
Heart.
are in.
The signs are in.
So now, just really coordinating with DOT, I think is our next step, and seeing
For
you know,
3A and 102,
how involved they really going to be in allowing us to put the sign in there right away, or
Yep.
they're kind of hands off. So
Yep.
I'll reach out to them this week.
They're all over the place.
I know. I mean,
They're
I
all over
don't.
the place.
I don't think.
We could do a couple of town roads.
I liked your idea of at least getting.
Directly.
I would like
Yeah,
to,
that's right. Yeah.
I would like to see some sort of a program, or at least some sort of
Certain kind of a.
something accepting in the fact that we're a Purple Heart
I
community.
think there was when she presented to us, I think there was a part of that they wanted to have it when it got accepted and we went out and did it with the veterans involved and so forth.
My thought was originally do it Veterans Day, have a little ceremony, but maybe at Memorial Day.
Yeah,
next
it's even
spring,
the
do
better
the-
time.
Because by then we should be able to have the signs in and everybody will know that they're there. We'll just do we'll talk to the Historical Society, see if we can just mention it and
Yeah.
nice little thing there.
May get that postal dig on the back of that tractor.
Go. Very nice.
Status of the bottled water. Any status on that?
Nothing.
You know, that
Yeah. Nothing.
they said 2 months or 6 weeks or something. As far as I know, they're still getting bottled water, right?
Yeah.
Well, the
And I've had
zone's-
no
the zone's
con-
expanding, so they're still sending bottled water.
We've had no contact about, if they're planning on extending water lines. So, I mean, I don't know what the plan is. That kind of discussion, I would think, would be going on about now if they're looking at a spring construction.
There is one more thing I'd like to add that's been going on in town. It's been from Route 3A all the way to Manchester, all the way down to the Hudson Line. There's been a survey crew out there
Yep.
doing work for Liberty, or potentially running a gas line down Route 3A.
The whole length.
Yeah. I stopped and talked to the guys because they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So I asked them, yeah, this is what it's all about, potentially. They're looking at this as a study, so they're getting all the information.
Down 3A
Yeah,
for residential subscription.
both, yeah.
Nice.
I like that.
We can pull the oil tanks and Griffin there.
Yeah, we can give them gas.
Yeah.
Boy, would my bill go down.
My LP gas tank could
Uh-huh.
be gone.
Yeah.
I got oil, sorry.
You have any other reports,
I
Mr.
will.
LaSalle?
I don't,
But I can switch.
and I don't, I feel bad because I don't know whether the Heritage Commission met in December or not. But I know I didn't go. So I don't
It's still early, Rich.
I left one out, if you don't mind. The Nashua Regional Planning Commission has its full commissioner meeting this Wednesday at 7 p.m. at 30 Temple Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. Did I say that correctly? Did I leave anything out? Got the date and the time? Okay, all right. Back to the flagpole for the cemetery. I did look up zoning laws.
Yep.
I think you're fine. I'll just give you the list just to make sure about setbacks and all that. I didn't see anything glaring at all.
Zoning, the flagpoles are allowed
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, but they called it a structure, just so I just listed
Yep.
it all. They did.
imagine if we weren't.
It's a minor.
Oh, God, oh my.
It's not going to be a problem, but I just wanted this. I said I'd give it to them, so I wanted
We just
it.
violated it out here. We put up a new one.
I know. You need a minor site plan.
That concludes our public business for the evening. We do have one more item. It's a non-public session under RSA 91A:32A, employee compensation.
So
Do we have a motion to go
do
into,
do you want to go in or do you want to wait
how long is it
Next
going to be?
week? 5 minutes?
Let's
max?
do it. Let's do it.
Let's get it done.
Do we have a motion to go on to non-public?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Leary,
Second,
second by Mr. LaSalle's.
good.
Roll call vote. Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I'm a yes.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Yep.
Mr. LaSalle's? We are now entering non-public session. While we do not anticipate the need to return to public session following the non-public for any reason other than to adjourn the meeting, we reserve the right to do so if the non-public session necessitates the board taking action. We are now in non-public. Thank you for viewing and have a good night.
Have a great night, people.